of an interfaith effort. Now the samples from the spot has been collected, forensic team is there, SIT also visited Chura Chandpur to look into the loot of arms and ammunition from the district. However, team did not have to face problem. Thousands of weapons were looted from armories. Now let us listen to a couple of bites before we come back and initiate the discussion.
जो हालात देश में बिगड़ते जा रहे हैं, आप बताइए कि मणिपुर के अंदर 100 लोग मारे गए, 100 लोग किसे कहते हैं, क्योंकि नॉर्थ ईस्ट में छोटा प्रदेश है, 30 लाख की आबादी है, 100 लोग मारे गए वहां पर। और ये लोग कैंपेन करते गए कनाडा के अंदर चुनाव के अंदर। आप बताइए कि किसी राज्य में आग लग जाए, सब काम छोड़ के पहुंचना पड़ता वहां पे, तो पब्लिक को लगता भी कि हाँ प्रधानमंत्री जी आए हैं, गृह मंत्री आए हैं, हमारी चिंता कर रहे हैं, कौन को हल करेंगे जो समस्या हमारी है। कॉन्फिडेंस बढ़ता है तो सतही फिर डिफीट होता मामला। दुर्भाग्य से किसी ने परवाह करी नहीं, चुनाव जीतने के लिए बजरंग बली की जय हो क्या के वोट मांगते रहे, और बजरंग बली जी ने भी इनको सबक सिखा दिया कि तुम कब तक मेरे नाम का दुरुपयोग करोगे। तो ये हालात जब रहे हैं तो आग लगती गई, फिर अमित शाह जी गए हैं, अब जाके आ गए हैं। अभी तक भी तनाव बहुत भयंकर तनाव है, आज भी तनाव है। जो रिपोर्ट आ रही है आज भी वो अच्छी नहीं आ रही है। तो देश का कोई भाग हो, चाहे छोटा प्रदेश हो या बड़ा प्रदेश हो, जब तक आप गंभीरता से नहीं लेंगे समस्या को, मैसेज नहीं होगा प्रदेशवासियों को कि सरकार गंभीर है, तब तक ऐसी स्थिति मैं समझता हूँ बिगड़ सकती है, नहीं बिगड़नी चाहिए।
52 दिन से ये हिंसा चल रही है, अब तक प्रधानमंत्री ने अपनी चुप्पी नहीं तोड़ी है। नेशनल सिक्योरिटी एडवाइज़र भी अमेरिका में है प्रधानमंत्री जी के साथ। गृह मंत्री 1 महीने ये राइट्स चलते रहे, उसके बाद वो वहाँ पर पहुँचे, 4 दिन के लिए पहुँचे। जो उन्होंने पीस कमेटी बनाई उसमें जो भी जिनकी लड़ाई हो रही है वो लोग ही उसमें शामिल नहीं हैं। ये जो मीटिंग होनी चाहिए थी, ऑल पार्टी मीटिंग, बहुत पहले करनी चाहिए थी और ये प्रधानमंत्री जी को चेयर करनी चाहिए थी। पर क्योंकि प्रधानमंत्री अमेरिका में व्यस्त हैं, प्रधानमंत्री रैलीज़ में व्यस्त हैं, प्रधानमंत्री प्रचार में व्यस्त हैं, तो उन्होंने इस पर ध्यान नहीं दिया है। हम शिवसेना बिल्कुल इसमें शामिल होगी, क्योंकि हम जानना चाहते हैं कि मणिपुर की जनता जो इतने 52 दिन से बगैर इंटरनेट के, बगैर किसी सुरक्षा के रह रही है, 11,000 से 20,000 तक लोग वहाँ से बेघर हुए हैं, 100 से ज़्यादा जाने जा चुकी हैं। ये ऐसा क्यों है कि अब तक उस हिंसा को नियंत्रण में नहीं लाया जा रहा है? तो ये सारी जवाब गृह मंत्री को देने होंगे। और कोई सल्यूशन, क्या मणिपुर का सल्यूशन है, वो मैं उम्मीद करती हूँ वो हमारे सामने रखेंगे। और बस यही है कि मणिपुर में फिर से पीस होना चाहिए। जी।
Right, we are really saddened with the way Honorable Prime Minister treated the entire people of Manipur. It has gone 50 days, no, more than 50 days. Now still he is not saying anything, not even tweeting, not a single word expressed this peace message to the entire people of Manipur. So in fact, the way he treats to the entire people of Manipur, no, it is just like the second-class citizens. No, in fact, we are also the bona fide citizens of India. We are really shocking with this and the activity that Honorable Prime Minister is doing now. Yeah, in fact, no, it is a matter of this for 1 week time. If these Honorable Prime Ministers, no, is intervene the matters. So this time, what happened is that the central government and the state government is going to different directions. So it's a very funny. Whatever it is, no, it should work together. The double engine should go together. So now what happened is that central government is going different direction and the state government is going another directions. That's why the solution is not it's not coming soon. So this why how I say is that you see the central government is something, their role is very confused. No, these Myanmar-based Kuki militants were originally from these Sindh state of Myanmar. These militants now they are infiltrating to the territory of Manipur. Now these refugees comes up more than 40,000. That is there in Manipur as well as to the Mizoram. Very recently in in April, so in the last April, Manipur government had find out some refugees, more than 2,000 in some of the area, in the limited area like Sandel, Tengnaufal and Juchanpur. So these refugees issues is there. This due to the unrest situation over in Myanmar, many these militants cross the border, and there is something confusion on that also. The central government is not working on that line also. It's not stopping. That's why these, in fact, in the hill area, these after infiltrating these, outside base militants, they are taking up many activities. In fact, they are taking this poppy plantation also. On that line, on that point, this honorable this minister also have this interest class between center and the state. So this is also one of the causes. And at the same time, this honorable chief minister has withdrawn from the tripartite talks without giving any information to the center and this Kuki, SHU teams. So this was also one of the very important for the causes of this thing.
Mr. Amit Shah, the Home Minister, already visited Manipur. He met all the political parties. The parties there in Manipur submitted a memorandum to Mr. Amit Shah, the Home Minister. He has come back. And what is the follow-up action the Union government has initiated? Nobody knows. In the meantime, a delegation consisting of 10 parties, which includes Congress Party, our party, the Communist Party of India, has come to Delhi. They were trying to meet Prime Minister, because Prime Minister so far not uttered a word on Manipur. Manipur is in turmoil, and the situation is so horrific. People are being killed. Devastation is taking place. There is no peace, normalcy. But Prime Minister has not said a word. And a delegation met Mr. Rajnath Singh, the Defence Minister. A delegation met Finance Minister, Madam Nirmala Sitharaman. What is the assessment of the Union government with regard to Manipur? What is their thinking? What is that they would like to do in Manipur?
राज्य मंत्री साहब से मिलने के लिए आए थे कि जो विदेशों में बात जा रही है कि भारत में जो किस तरह का माहौल हो रहा है, उसका स्पष्टीकरण था, क्योंकि हम इंटरफेथ पे काम करने वाले लोग दुनिया के साथ जुड़े हुए हैं और हम उनको भी बात करना होता है जो बाहर से आता है। हमारा मकसद था, कल मीटिंग होम मिनिस्टर ने बुलाई है अपोजिशन के लोगों को, क्योंकि हम 2 दिन पहले मणिपुर गए थे। 11 लोगों का हमारा जत्था, सभी धर्म के धर्मगुरु थे उसमें, और हम वहाँ की गवर्नर को मिले और वहाँ की धरती से हमने प्रार्थना की सामूहिक कि वहाँ शांति हो। और उसके बाद जब हम आए थे तो हमने होम मिनिस्टर साहब के ऊपर ये प्रेशर किया, उनसे मिलने की बात की और उनसे कहा कि ये नेशनल इशू हो चुका है और देश में शांति होनी चाहिए, इसलिए धर्मगुरु बाहर आए हैं और धर्मगुरुओं की बात भी मानी गई है और लोगों की बात भी, बहुत लोग इसका प्रयास कर रहे होंगे। उन सब का असर ये हुआ कि परसों रात को 10 बजे उन्होंने ये घोषणा की ऑल पार्टी मीटिंग का। ये एक स्वागत योग्य कदम है।
So, the most important meeting, the all-party meeting has started in Delhi. What will be the result of the all-party meeting? Will there be a resolution? Will there be separate press conferences? Will this lead to some sort of reconciliation between different groups? One will have to wait. But I think what is important is at least all the lawmakers are together, at least all the MLAs are together, all there was a delegation of religious heads which had gone to the state. They have also come back with their recommendations. So Sushil Goswami Maharaj joins us, National Convener, Bharatiya Sarv Dharm Sansad. Nabakishore Sanghaji joins us, National Spokesperson, World Maithi Council. Dr. Pauthang Haukip also joins us, Associate Professor, Center for Linguistics, JNU. And author and scholar Rami Niranjan Desai joins us. A very warm welcome to all of you. And in the studio is my political editor, Brijesh Pandey. Brijesh, first to you, set the stage for this conversation. A lot of things came out that there are certain no-go areas in this meeting. Can you take us through those no-go areas?
Well, I think, let's start the conversation by saying that this is an extremely important step because till now there was the opposition parties were, accusing the government of not inviting an all-party meeting and handling the situation on its own, which has definitely not gone down well. And the violence in Manipur continues unabated, sporadic it may be, but the intensity is not dying down. There is no rapprochement, there is no political rapprochement on cards, which is making the situation as well as the distrust between the two community very deep and very divisive. And I think, this attempt by the government, you can see this Parliamentary Affairs Minister, Mr. Joshi is there. The attempt by the government is to get every party on one page, and the attempt on the part of Ministry of Home Affairs is to make sure that, that the political process can begin. And that is the reason why the government has been saying that please do not indulge into political one-upmanship, please do not indulge into any such conversation which can further exacerbate the situation, which is already not well as far as Manipur is concerned. So the thrust of the government would be to project a consensus approach as far as how to deal with the situation in Manipur and how to move forward.
Okay, I think that's a very fair position. But I'm also being told that right now the president rule is not on table.
The president rule is not on table. The removal of chief minister is also not on table. But for how long is the key question, because the government would also not want to send a message. I mean, if you look at purely from the government side of view, the government would also not like to send a message that they succumbed under pressure. But I think by the fact that the government has agreed to call for an all-party meeting here in Delhi means that the government is now willing to accommodate diverse viewpoints and also listen to opposition parties as to what best can be done to achieve peace and normalcy in the state of Manipur. It's going to be a long haul. It is not going to be achieved in just one meeting. So it'll be extremely interesting to see what the government says and what the government has to say about the steps that has taken and what the opposition has to say about the steps that should have been taken.
Okay. सुशील गोस्वामी जी हमारे साथ जुड़े हुए हैं. सुशील जी, आप लोगों का डेलीगेशन मिला था, जिसे कह सकते हैं कि उस डेलीगेशन को क्या पता लगा जब आप लोग वहां गए और आप लोगों ने गवर्नर साहब को क्या बोला?
देखिए, हम लोगों ने ये डिसाइड किया था दिल्ली में बैठकर कि बहुत समय से जो दो कम्युनिटीज में झगड़ा हो रहा है, बहुत लोगों की जान जा रही है. हम जो धर्मगुरु हैं, जो इंटरफेथ पे विश्वास रखते हैं, उन सब ने ये प्रोग्राम बनाया वहां जाने का. और हम 11 लोगों का डेलीगेशन अलग अलग धर्म के धर्मगुरुओं को वहां गया था और वहां की गवर्नर साहिबा से मिले हम और दिखते आए, क्योंकि वहां इंटरनेट काम नहीं कर रहा था, जनजीवन सामान्य रूप से नहीं था. फिर भी हम ऐसे समय में गए और हमने सबसे पहले उस धरती के ऊपर जाकर सर्वधर्म प्रार्थना की, क्योंकि हमारी हाईकमांड जो है वो ईश्वर है, परमपिता परमात्मा है, वही इस कष्ट से हमको मुक्ति दिला सकता था. तो काफी समय से कुछ हो नहीं रहा था, इसलिए हम गए थे. और वहां में गवर्नर साहिबा ने जिस प्रकार से हमारी बात को सुना और उन्होंने कहा कि वह भी बहुत कोशिश कर रही हैं, अलग अलग संप्रदाय के लोगों को बुलाकर वो बैठक कर रही हैं, मगर कोई सलूशन नहीं निकल रहा था. तो हम जब यहाँ वापस आए तो हमने ये डिसाइड किया कि हमें होम मिनिस्टर साहब से मुलाकात करनी चाहिए. उसके लिए हमने कोशिश की और कोशिश अभी भी हमारी जारी है, मगर उनसे हमारी भेंट नहीं हुई. परंतु ये सत्य है कि सब तरफ से जो दबाव पड़ रहा था उसका रिजल्ट ये हुआ कि रात्रि में जब मैं लास्ट बुलेटिन देख रहा था 10 बजे के करीब, तब होम मिनिस्टर का ये वक्तव्य आया कि वह ऑल पार्टी मीटिंग 24 तारीख को 3 बजे करेंगे। हमने सबने उसका स्वागत किया कि कहीं से शुरुआत हुई, वो सेंट्रल गवर्नमेंट की हो या स्टेट गवर्नमेंट की हो। देखिए, इस राजनीति से हमारा कोई लेना देना नहीं है। हम धार्मिक व्यक्ति हैं
गोस्वामी
और
जी,
ये देश धर्मनिरपेक्ष
गोस्वामी जी,
देश जाना जाता है।
गोस्वामी जी, मैं एक चीज जानना चाहता हूं, जब आप वहां गए तो आपने क्या पाया? इतनी नफरत क्यों हो गई है दो समुदायों के बीच में जो बरसों से साथ साथ रह रहे थे?
देखिए, जो हमें बताया गया, स्वयं गवर्नर साहब ने बताया कि वह आपस में नहीं लड़ना चाहते, आज भी नहीं लड़ना चाहते। वो ये कहते हैं वहां के लोग कि पता नहीं कहां से लोग आ गए हैं जो जिनको पहचानते नहीं है। वो आपस में नहीं लड़ना चाहते, बरसों से वो एक दूसरे के साथ रहते हैं। मगर अगर कोई ऐसी फोर्सेस आई हैं या अक्रॉस द बॉर्डर आई हैं तो उसको कैसा रोका जाए, ये भी हमारी सरकारों के काम है। मगर इतनी लंबी ये सिलसिला चले, मारकाट हो, वो अच्छा नहीं है। हमें हमें तो यहाँ तक पता लगा कि पुलिस में तक वहां नफरत पैदा हो गई है, एक जाति को लेकर दूसरी जाति में। ऐसे हालात में वहां का जनजीवन
गोस्वामी जी,
असामान्य
एक
हो
मिनट
गया
मैं
है।
चाहता हूं, एक मिनट रुकिए। ये गवर्नर साहब कुछ बोल रही हैं मणिपुर की, मैं जरा सुनवाना चाहता हूं लोगों को।
स्टेट के मणिपुर स्टेट डिस्ट्रिक्ट में जो जो भी है और उनको उस एरिया में रखा गया।
This is an all-party delegation, and I'm going to play out the nat of the governor again.
सारा कुछ बार-बार चीफ सेक्रेटरी और ऑल मंत्रियों से मेरी मीटिंग्स और राष्ट्रपति को भी लिखा है कि आप इस मामले में सेंटर, इस यूनिवर्सिटी बंद है, कॉलेज बंद है, छोटे छोटे बच्चे, और मैंने जाकर कैंपों का दौरा किया, विजिट किया, फिर सरकार के साथ ये सारी चीज़ों की मैंने मांग भी किया कि कुछ इस लोगों की इमीडिएट कुछ राहत मिले। तो केंद्र सरकार ने भी करीब 100 करोड़ के लगभग पैकेज भेजा है कि इमीडिएट कैंपों में रहने वालों को खान पान, प्रेसिडेंट का भी फोन आया कि हो गई है कि होते थे लोग विरोध करते थे अपनी अपनी डिमांड, अपनी अपनी मांग, लेकिन इस तरह की हिंसा कभी कम्युनिटी वाइज नहीं हुई जो एक दूसरे से नफरत थी और एक दूसरे के प्रति जो आ गया कि मतलब जितने कुकी कम्युनिटी के लोग थे वो मतलब उनकी सुरक्षा कुकी डिस्ट्रिक्टों में करना पड़ा और मेथी कम्युनिटी के लोगों को यहाँ पर लाना पड़ा। जितने भी जिले में स्टेट के मणिपुर स्टेट डिस्ट्रिक्ट में जो जो भी है और उनको उस एरिया में रखा गया जहाँ उनकी अपनी कम्युनिटी है। तो मैं यहाँ पर चूड़ा-चूड़ उनकी अपनी सुविधाएं हैं वो तत्काल सारा कुछ बार-बार चीफ सेक्रेटरी और ऑल मंत्रियों से मेरी मीटिंग्स और राष्ट्रपति को भी लिखा है कि आप इस मामले में सेंटर, इस यूनिवर्सिटी बंद है।
So the governor accepts it. The governor accepts it and says it on camera that the violence, hostility is unprecedented between communities. स्वामी जी, बहुत हमारे और भी गेस्ट हैं, लेकिन एक चीज़ मैं आपसे पहले पूछना चाहता हूँ, ईसाई और हिंदू समुदाय के बीच में भी लड़ाई हो गई। जो समुदाय हैं वो धर्म के नाम पे बढ़ गए। कोई कह रहा है कि मंदिर तोड़ दिए, कोई कह रहा है कि गिरजाघर जला दिए गए। इसका कोई तोड़ है?
देखिए, ये क्योंकि हम अंदर जाने की इजाजत हमको नहीं थी, हम वहां का दौरा करना चाहते थे मगर उसकी इजाजत नहीं मिली। मगर हमें भी यही बताया गया कि कुछ मंदिरों को भी क्षति हुई है, मगर अधिकतर जो क्षति हुई है वह ईसाई धर्म के मंदिरों पर हुई है, गिरजाघरों पर हुई है। और मुझे कल ये भी पता लगा कि यहूदी समाज का भी वहाँ कोई मंदिर था, उसके ऊपर भी अटैक हुआ है। ये मुझे बताया गया, हमारे जो यहूदी साथी हैं दिल्ली में, उन्होंने बताया। तो ये सारी बातें जो हो रही हैं, और मैं आपने गवर्नर साहब की जो बात सुनाई है, आपने कहाँ से ये लिया वीडियो मुझे मालूम नहीं है, परंतु ये वीडियो अपने आप में सब कहानी बता रहा है।
Absolutely. Before I go to Naba Kishorji and Paul Singh Haukip, Rami, you must have heard the voice of the governor and you must have heard Sushil Goswami Maharaj. Candid, point blank, honest and simply put. Your response.
Absolutely, Karthikeya. I think it was very important, like I've said before, that all stakeholders have to take responsibility. And it was high time an interfaith dialogue or mission approach this with that same sentiment. And I think, obviously, if your question is, how bad things are or how, much worse they can get, I think at the end of the day, these are historical issues. They have somewhere their genesis in a certain amount of ethnic rivalry and discomfort. This is something that we have to accept. But for it to become this vicious, and for it to now, what seems clear, be premeditated, is a matter of concern, because, like we've been discussing on your show for a really long time, that there seems to be a role of infiltrators. Infiltrators may be backed by foreign hand. These are concerns that are of national importance, and that is going to take some time to resolve. I am glad that this all-party meeting is happening, because we need to take the opposition on board of whatever decisions the central government decides to take. Which might not be something very harsh, but let's say in terms of
Okay. Now, let me go to Mr. Pauthing Haukip. So, your first response to what you heard of the governor and Sushil ji. The meeting is taking place, and then I'll go to Naba Kishore ji. Pauthing.
Okay, thank you for inviting me for the show. I have a slightly internet problem. Am I audible?
You are audible.
Okay. So all these what you call all party meet that is underway in Delhi, and also the delegation which met the governor of Manipur, they are all done in good spirit. So we don't doubt their spirits. So now all these exercises are done in a way to bring down the amount of violence that is currently taking place in the state, and also to somehow ensure relief delivery and so on and so forth. But whether these myths that we see time to time are a long-term solution or not is something that we have to take into consideration. I would not like to deliberate it a bit further. I will reserve it for my later deliberation. So any myth, as of now, it may not be possible to discuss the integrity of the historical context, the cultural, political, and economic context, and also the social context, and all what has led to this problem. So this might be discussed in all this meeting. But on top of all these things, in order to avoid any such future not to appear in future again, and for that we need to have some kind of long-term solution. So what is long-term solution? That I will later on deliberate.
Okay. Nava Kishore ji, your thoughts, your first reaction on this meeting which has taken place.
Good afternoon, Kartikeya, and good afternoon to other fellow panel members. Yes, though it's late, very late, but I think this meeting is a very important step to discuss the issues, and the leaders from all the parties, they should think honestly and sincerely how to resolve or to stop this violence, because this is affecting the poor to poorest section of all the communities. It is not just the Meitei or not just the Kuki, it's everyone. So unlike we have seen in the recent trend, the parties, they make issues for sort of like the vote bank politics, or making this as a like the coloring the religious angle. It is nothing like that. This problem, what happened in Manipur, is something very complicated, very deep rooted. It will take time but the normalcy has to be restored first. The peace will take some time, but the normalcy has to be restored. So, in the last visit of Honorable Union Home Minister Ji in Imphal, he promised that he will take necessary actions to control the violence. The number one, he told that the militants, they will be asked to go to their respective camp, and from the other side, the civilians who have involved with the kind of taken those arms and ammunition from some police station, they have to be surrendered. The combing operations are still going on, but what we see is still almost 24 days after that Home Minister's assurance, I think it did not bring any fruitful result. So that remained a big concern. And it is good that the different spiritual gurus have been there, visited the place. But I think everyone must put the honest and sincere efforts, then only the normalcy will come, and normalcy has to be restored in the first place in Manipur.
Okay, so there are a couple of things which are clear. So going back to Rami, the conversation got cut because I think there was a Wi-Fi issue. First complete your argument which were you trying to make, and then I've got a very specific question for you.
Karthikeya, I had a very limited argument that this is a great move. All-party meet was going to happen. It was going to happen at an appropriate time. We have to give benefit of doubt to the government that, they are taking steps in measure while sort of assessing the security situation. Because at this point, anybody can say anything and anything can be taken in the wrong way. And we've seen this happen before. So I think it's a great thing. And I think all the opposition leaders who haven't showed up, it's a really shameful move on their end, because, virtue signaling is easy, but putting the state of Manipur over and above your personal differences, would have been a great show of confidence for everybody in Manipur, for all the communities involved in Manipur. But having said that, this is a very welcome move. And I think, there will be suggestions and recommendations that will come out of this meeting if they have not already been thought about. I'm very interested to see what they come up with. I doubt that it will be a very harsh, heavy-handed solution to the situation. I assess, and this is complete, just conjecture from my end, that, this could be something of maybe, taking a step towards a suspended animation of the assembly, and I think from there on in, if that is what happens, long-term solutions will be sought after. I think it is not lost on anybody, and like the gentleman before me rightly said, that eventually this is a question of long-term solutions, because these are long-term problems. These problems haven't just cropped up 2 months ago. It's just we haven't been paying attention. So, I think the long-term solution part of it is going to take some time, some deliberation, some cooling down of tempers, but this is a great start to it.
Rami, do you welcome interfaith approach? Because
absolutely, Karthikeya, there's no doubt. I've always said that there has to be some sort of representation from all stakeholders. Of course, we don't look at this violence from a religious lens, but that doesn't mean that religious leaders don't have an influence on any of these communities. Of course they do. And of course, we know we are a highly spiritual civilization, and, this sort of guidance means a lot to us. So apart from political stakeholders, apart from civil society stakeholders, of course, religious stakeholders, have written this in my article that, we don't want to touch these things because we don't know how it will be taken, how our words are misrepresented in these, days of social media and hyper emotions. But the fact of the matter is that, even community leaders, elders of tribes, all these people have a huge influence in communities, have a huge influence on how people are going to look at this violence in the future and figure out solutions, amongst community members to live together once again. So, of course, this is, this was, I think, a great initiative.
Mr. Haukip, this question is to you. Do you welcome the interfaith approach? Before I broaden this discussion, the reason why I'm asking you is, if people recall, the first visuals of the violence in Manipur came off the religious structures being destroyed.
So any move which has come from different sections of the society, including religious leaders, it's a welcome move. So as I told you at the beginning of my statement, these are done with a good intention. There is no doubt in my mind that all this religious group has come with a hard-hearted mind. So they have come with a good-hearted mind to somehow, if not find a solution, somehow dose down the level of violence. And thereupon gave some space for future negotiation to start. So this should have come long time back, but given the kind of gravity of the conflict, so there was, in a way, not much room for all these civil society organizations to meet together and carry out this kind of what you call peace appeal. So peace appeal, to my mind, if they have come from other religious groups, including other cultural groups, they are all most welcome. But having said that, these appeals are in a way to end the cessation of violence, but it doesn't address the long-term solution. So if I may allow, or if you may allow me to deliberate further upon this, so I will just deliberate, and you bear me out for a minute. So there is no shying away from what you call this land. So land is a very, very integral part of Northeast India, and so is it in many parts of the world. So especially in Northeast India, we need to understand the notion of land. And this notion of land is, to my mind, somewhere one of the factors for the occurrence of this violence. So what does land means to a tribal or to the hill people, and what does land mean to the Meitei? So equally, land is a precious resource for both the valley and the hill people. So for the hill people, currently our debate is always vitiated around these binaries, and we always talk about political angle and so on and so forth. But underlyingly, what does land means to a tribal is something that we have to understand in the light of what the Constitution has enshrined for the tribals. So land for the tribal is not only a source of livelihood. Of course, it is one of the sources of livelihood, and in the hills, it is the main source of livelihood. It is one. But apart from livelihood, so anthropologists or any other sociologists or any field will describe how important is land. So land is a marker of identity. All identity, whether they reconnect back to their history, all their folk tales, folklores, and how, and then their what you call all the other expressions such as idioms and proverbs and even arts, artifacts, everything is embedded. Underlying the land is embedded with them. And the language, everything, the culture, the way they weave, everything comes from that land. And land is the ultimate source of their identity. And if that identity, which encompasses language, culture, folklore, folktale, folk story, and historical past, and so on and so forth, so if this land is seen by any tribal, not only the Kukis, anywhere in any part of Northeast, is somehow there is being, if they feel that their land is somehow disturbed, so there will be a reaction on their part to somehow safeguard their land.
Okay.
So in such a situation, we have to look back at the Constitution. With the framer of the Constitution, we are very, very clear that if the tribals or the minorities are not protected from their land, in future, somehow this land will be endangered, and their culture, their language, their history, and their worldview, and especially the knowledge which comes from all these hill areas, all these forest land will be wiped out. And this cultural progress, or this cultural richness of any tribe is a massive boost for any academic endeavors. And also a country or a region is based how far its culture is being viable, how far it is being protected. These are good points where any future negotiation should also reflect on this, on the life and culture of the hill people in relation to their land, and their identity has to be looked into for any kind of logical conclusion.
Okay. Nabakishore ji. Nabakishore ji.
Yes, Kartikeya ji. The land issue which mentioned by Dr. Hauke, of course, every war, every violence, right, starting from the Mahabharata, of course, the focus is that. But when we talk about in the context of Manipur, the issue is about all of a sudden the influx of the migrants who came and who started dominating the hills area. At the same time, they are expanding to the foothills, encroaching. So all this basically complicated the things. What we all should know is that there must be always something, a balanced approach. So when the balance is disturbed, so definitely this kind of issue erupted. And the current violence is simply one of that example. Here, for the Meitei, we all know now that Meitei are restricted to the valley lands. And Meitei have been one of the aboriginal people or the community of this land. And now what we see is that the Meitei is facing serious issue because of the changes in the geopolitical system, including the Myanmar, including the state itself, the changes of the demography, the changes of the kind of the transnational development, like we are now coming, the railways will soon reach to the Imphal, the valley. Then there is a plan for Trans-Asia highways, and putting all these things. Now there is a serious threat. And again, the population of Meitei is almost stagnant, or some experts say that it is in the declining. So there it comes that a strong insecurity to the Meitei, that if there is no proper constitutional protection given to Meitei, then Meitei will face a serious challenge, and maybe in the coming few decades, Meitei will be extinct from their own homeland. So the immigrant community, at the same time, we have now come to know that it's a 395 kilometer, it's a international boundary shared with Manipur and the Myanmar, and hardly 10 kilometer after such a long independence, just 10 kilometer of border fencing have been completed, another 80 kilometer. Home Minister ji said that he has given the approval. But during this process, there are already a huge amount of illegal immigrants entered. And because of this, what I said, that complete imbalance happened. So this is a very deep-rooted problem. This is a very complicated problem. So that's why I say it is not just all party meet today will just bring the normalcy, will just bring the peace in the state, but it requires a very honest and sincere efforts, collective efforts, how to address this deep-rooted, complicated problem. For the Meitei, if you see the overall, the valley, for the past maybe 8 to 9 years, we see that it's not only valley, the entire, the state, you see that, okay, the blockades have been reduced, there's no much fun at all there. But at the same time, when you see that the Meitei, for them, the opportunity for them is slowly, it's shrinking. So it's a big, they feel that it's a big threat to them. And if this is not addressed by the government, then the problem will escalate higher and higher. That's what I said. It needs a special focus on the issue of Manipur. It is not just one of the incident happened in a remote state. This has already become a serious issue to the national security also. It may become a national security threat. We have already seen that due to this violence, now these drug routes, the carrying of these drug routes, the transportation, the routes, now it is transferred to Mizoram route. It's very much alarming. It's very much alarming. I want to say these few points at this moment.
Okay, and before we go further, there are a couple of more reactions which have just come in, and I will play them out for you. The meeting has already, is already underway. 45 minutes have passed. I think there will be a presentation also. I don't think this meeting is going to last for more than 1.5 hours. At the best, this can be 2 hours, but not more than that.
I think, Karthikeya, there's also this thing that, that they will also try to make sure that everyone is on the abreast of or on the same page as to exactly what is happening right now, what are the steps government has taken, and then they will also ask them to send their wish list as to how to deal with the situation, so that some sort of a common ground is found.
Okay, let's play out those bites now.
पिछले 1 महीने से मणिपुर जल रहा है. आज आप ऑल पार्टी मीटिंग बुलाते. 1 महीने से आप उस वायलेंस को रोक ही नहीं पा रहे. आप इसलिए नहीं रोक पा रहे क्योंकि आपकी सरकार की वजह से वो वायलेंस शुरू हुआ, बीजेपी की सरकार की. आपने गैर जरूरी हिमाकत की. वहां पर भी आप अपने हिंदुत्व के एजेंडे को लागू करना चाह रहे थे. आप गैर जरूरी तौर पर वहां पर आप उन लोगों को ट्राइबल स्टेटस देना चाहते जिनका वो कभी ट्राइबल थे ही नहीं. आप बताइए कि कैसे बीजेपी की सरकार में हजारों एम्युनेशन कार्टेजेस लूटे जाते हैं, 4,000 5,000 के करीब हथियार लूटे जाते हैं पुलिस एकेडमी से. कैसे होता है सब बताइए. ये तो इनकी नाकामी है. आप आज ऑल पार्टी मीटिंग बुला रहे हैं. आप क्या होगा ऑल पार्टी मीटिंग में? हम तो उम्मीद कर रहे थे कि प्रधानमंत्री खुद मणिपुर जाएंगे, वहां पर जाकर वो उन लोगों को समझाएंगे, उन लोगों से अपील करेंगे. मगर सरकार उस पर ऐसा लग रहा है कि बिल्कुल सरकार के पास कोई वो ही नहीं है, कुछ आंसर ही नहीं उसके ऊपर. ना गवर्नेंस दिख रहा है वहां पर, कुछ गवर्नेंस नहीं दिख रहा वहां पर. मणिपुर को तो छोड़ दिया गया, बस जलता है जलने दो. मोदी सरकार सरासर नाकाम साबित हुई मणिपुर में. इतने दिन से कैसे जलता है मणिपुर बताइए आप. हैदराबाद को लोग आ गए हैं वहां से अपने घर बार छोड़कर. आप देखिए एक इंग्लिश अखबार की रिपोर्ट, हैदराबाद को आ गए वो लोग, जिसमें से एक तो अपना नया बनाया घर को छोड़कर आ गए वो लोग.
See, I believe BJP should learn the meaning of the word practice before you preach. There is a statement in English that practice before you preach, and BJP should learn this. The Home Minister went to Manipur. He failed to control the Manipur violence. There is ethnic cleansing not only in Manipur but in Uttarakhand. There has been violence that has erupted in Kolhapur in Maharashtra. And these are all double engine governments of the BJP. So BJP, before lecturing non-BJP states, BJP before conspiring against non-BJP states like West Bengal and others, should introspect, should understand that they should control their own government-ruled states. The Prime Minister 2 days ago did an episode of Man Ki Baat, but he did not do a single Manipur Ki Baat. And he went to America when Manipur is burning, 100 dead, temples are burnt, churches are burnt, girls are being raped and murdered, people are being slaughtered on the main road. The Honorable Prime Minister of India is in America gifting diamonds to the First Lady and having dinners with the US President. अरे पहले अपना घर बचाइए, फिर बाहर जाके खाना खाइएगा. So I believe BJP should practice what they preach and immediately they should take stern steps to restore peace in Manipur.
देखिए, जो काम बहुत पहले करना चाहिए था, बीजेपी ने सैकड़ों लोगों को मरवा करके किया है. मैं माननीय गृह मंत्री जी से ये पूछना चाहता हूं कि भाई ये जो 100 से ज्यादा लोग मारे गए हैं, इसका इल्जाम किसके सर दिया जाएगा? और आज ऑल पार्टी मीटिंग बुला रहे हैं, जिस दिन 2022 में विधानसभा का इलेक्शन हो रहा था. ये कुकी और मेतेई के दरमियान झगड़ा किसने शुरू कराया? किसने जाके कहा कि कुकी को हम ये देंगे और मितई को नहीं देंगे? किसने नागा और सिक्किम के लोगों के दरमियान झगड़ा शुरू कराया? देखिए, यही मैं कहना चाहता हूं भारतीय जनता पार्टी को कि आप इलेक्शन के फायदे के लिए समाज को बांटेंगे और उसके बाद जो वायलेंस होगा, जब लोग मरेंगे, तो उसका इल्जाम भी आपको अपने सर लेना पड़ेगा। आज जो नीतीश कुमार बात कर रहे हैं मोहब्बत की, नीतीश कुमार जो समाज को जोड़ने की बात कर रहे हैं, वो इसी वजह से कर रहे हैं। अब मणिपुर जल रहा है, मैं साफ साफ कह सकता हूं कि भारतीय जनता पार्टी की नीतियों की वजह से मणिपुर में दरारें पड़ी है। कुकी और मितई जो आपस में लड़ रहे हैं, भारतीय जनता पार्टी के मैनिफेस्टो की वजह से लड़ रहे हैं, और इसके लिए भारतीय जनता पार्टी को अपना एनालिसिस करना चाहिए।
वहाँ से खबरें आ रही हैं, आज लगभग 50 दिन से ज़्यादा दिन हो गए, और बिल्कुल ऐसा लग रहा है कि किसी भी हर तरह की खबर को रोका जा रहा है मणिपुर से। वहाँ इंटरनेट बंद है, देश के लोगों को कोई अपडेट नहीं दिया जा रहा वहाँ पे क्या स्थिति है। प्रधानमंत्री ने अभी तक एक भी रिव्यू मीटिंग नहीं बुलाई, एक भी सिक्योरिटी हालात की कोई मीटिंग नहीं बुलाई। बहुत मुश्किल से पिछले हफ्ते अमित शाह जी ने एक मीटिंग बुलाई, जबकि 50 दिन से वहाँ पे बता रहे हैं मिनिस्टर्स के घर फूके जा रहे हैं, ब्लड सेल चल रहे हैं, दंगे हर तरफ चल रहे हैं। और ऐसी स्थिति में प्रधानमंत्री का विदेश में घूमना, और ऐसी स्थिति में गृह मंत्री को हाथ पे हाथ रख के बैठना और पॉलिटिकल रैलीज, ये दिखाता है कि देश की इंटरनल सिक्योरिटी को लेकर ये कितना गंभीर है। ये पार्टी पिछले मणिपुर में 50 दिन से हो रहा है, ना कोई इनका सीनियर मिनिस्टर अभी तक विजिट किया वहाँ पर, ना लॉ एंड ऑर्डर को लेकर कोई मीटिंग हुई। प्रधानमंत्री अमेरिका में घूम रहे हैं, झूठी अपने लिए तालियां बजवा रहे हैं वहाँ पे। आप सोचिए, आपको ध्यान होगा पिछले 1 महीने पहले की बात है, जब जो बाइडेन को ऑस्ट्रेलिया जाना था एक समिट पे, उन्होंने ऑस्ट्रेलिया छोड़ दिया और चले गए अमेरिका, बिकॉज वहाँ पे कोई एक बिल उनका पास नहीं हो रहा था। तो ये दिखाता है कि ये भारतीय जनता पार्टी देश की आंतरिक सुरक्षा को लेकर बिल्कुल भी गंभीर नहीं है, बिल्कुल।
We are coming here to, appeal to the warring groups in Manipur to stop firing, to stop killing, to stop destruction of villages, to stop burning down of the villages, and we want to give appeal to both sides of the ethnic groups, Meitei and Kuki, to stop firing. They will get a solution, I think, from our party. Kamlesh Sitaram is attending our PB meeting. So from our party, John Britas and Kamlesh Sivadasan will attend. Both are MPs from Kerala. So I hope that today the whole nation will discuss how to give peace to Manipur and how to, bring a solution for normalcy and peace in the, this state, Manipur. Yeah. Now current situation is till yesterday there was the burning down, killing each other, this and that is going on. There is a normal life of Manipur. This around say 55, 56 days. So now no solution is there. So from today we are getting a solution. We hope that Mr. Amit Shah and all political leadership of the political parties will discuss and will arrive a solution to bring peace in Manipur. Yeah, the Prime Minister for the last, 15 days, we waited here. We submitted, appointment letter to him for the meeting of the all 10 political parties. No. We are neglected by Prime Minister, Mr. Manmohan Singh, and he, did not give a single word on Manipur.
Sushil Goswami ji, I know you have been very patiently waiting with us. Do you think that the interfaith delegation should again go to Manipur and should be allowed to visit areas deep inside, which this time you just couldn't go and visit them? गोस्वामी जी, मैं आपसे पूछा था कि आपको लगता है कि इस बार दोबारा आपको मौका मिलना चाहिए जाने का और उन इलाकों में जाने का जहां आप नहीं जा पाए थे?
देखिए, बीइंग एक रिस्पॉन्सिबल सिटीजन ऑफ इंडिया, हम लोग क्या चाहते हैं? हम ये चाहते हैं, आज सुबह हमने हर पॉलिटिकल पार्टी के लीडर से रिक्वेस्ट किया, रिलीजियस लोगों ने, कि आप सब लोग इस मीटिंग में जरूर जाएं और दोनों ही साइड के लोग, सभी देश के नेता एक टेबल पे बैठकर इस सिचुएशन का हल निकाल सकते हैं। आपको निकालना चाहिए। आपको किसी को दोष ना देकर जो हो गया उसको छोड़ दीजिए। आप जाइए, बैठिए, और हम रिलीजियस गुरु दोबारा जाना होगा तो जाएंगे, और आपके आपके कहने पर, आपका सहयोग करने पर, वह चाहे वो अपोजिशन के लोग हों, उनका सजेशन हो, चाहे गवर्नमेंट ऑफ इंडिया का हो, हम इस सोल्यूशन का हम सोल्यूशन निकालना चाहते हैं। ये जो समस्या है, तो मैंने सुबह सबको रिक्वेस्ट किया था, सभी पार्टी के नेताओं को, आप जरूर जाइए और एक दूसरे को दोष ना देके इसका समाधान निकालिए। ये जरूरी है। लोग मर रहे हैं, इंसानियत मर रही है, इंसान मर रहा है। तो मेरी बिल्कुल, आप जब कहेंगे और हम महसूस करेंगे तो हम जरूर जाएंगे। कोई भी शक्ति हमको रोक नहीं सकती है। हमारी हाईकमांड जो है वो परमपिता परमेश्वर है, हम उसके कहने पे चलते हैं।
बहुत बढ़िया आपने बात बोली। आई वुड लाइक द व्यूअर्स हु हैव जस्ट जॉइन्ड इन, आई एम वेरी हैप्पी दैट हंड्रेड्स ऑफ पीपल हैव आर जॉइनिंग अस ऑन आवर प्रोग्राम। एक बार ये दोबारा से सुने कि गवर्नर साहिबा क्या बोल रही हैं, वो खुद सुने।
इस यूनिवर्सिटी बंद है, कॉलेज बंद है, छोटे छोटे बच्चे, और मैंने जाकर कैंपों का दौरा किया, विजिट किया, फिर सरकार के साथ ये सारी चीज़ों की मैंने मांग भी किया कि कुछ इस लोगों की इमीडिएट कुछ राहत मिले। तो केंद्र सरकार ने भी करीब 100 करोड़ के लगभग पैकेज भेजा है कि इमीडिएट कैंपों में रहने वालों को खान पान, प्रेसिडेंट का भी फोन आया कि हो गई है कि होते थे, लोग विरोध करते थे अपनी अपनी डिमांड, अपनी अपनी डिमांड, लेकिन इस तरह की हिंसा कभी कम्युनिटी वाई नहीं हुई, जो एक दूसरे से नफरत थी और एक दूसरे के प्रति जो आ गया कि मतलब जितने कुकी कम्युनिटी के लोग थे वो मतलब उनकी सुरक्षा कुकी डिस्ट्रिक्टों में करना पड़ा और मेथी कम्युनिटी के लोगों को यहाँ पर लाना पड़ा। जितने भी जिले में स्टेट के, मणिपुर स्टेट डिस्ट्रिक्ट में जो भी है, और उनको उस एरिया में रखा गया जहाँ उनकी अपनी कम्युनिटी है। तो मैं यहाँ पर चूड़ा-चूड़ उनकी अपनी सुविधाएं हैं, वो तत्काल सारा कुछ बार चीफ सेक्रेटरी और ऑल मंत्रियों से मेरी मीटिंग्स, और राष्ट्रपति को भी लिखा है कि आप इस मामले में सेंटर इस यूनिवर्सिटी।
Rani, there's a sociological question for you. I thought, I'll ask you, I'll reserve it for you. Rami, sociologically, in 60s, there was a theory in context of New York called melting pot. Then a lot of sociologists, anthropologists argued, no, in modernity does not create melting pot, it creates a salad bowl. You keep your identity, but you're still part of that salad bowl. Manipur that way, unfortunately, defines both salad bowl and a melting pot, and identities have hardened. There is no emphasis on common cultural identity. Yesterday I was with Dr. Ramesh and I said, why isn't like Iromba? Iromba is a Manipuri dish, and the way Iromba used to be cooked 400 years ago is different from Iromba today, because now the chili has been added to Iromba, the potatoes from the New World has been added to Iromba. So Iromba, it's like a meat preparation. 500 years ago there was no peppercorn, but now 500 years later the same mutton preparation might have pepper and chilies. So it's like you have a common changing cultural identity. Why isn't that there in Manipur? It just baffles me.
Karthikeya, just point aside when you said, it's like modernity makes a melting point, just a thought on that we've always considered modernity in reference of westernization, and that has usually come in from the cultural representations of the West. Okay. And I think the idea of modernity in a civilization like ours that has always evolved and always adjusted itself to its new environment is completely different to what anthropologists and sociologists considered. Having said that, Iromba is a great, it's a great analogy to what's happening, because, at the end of the day, I'll tell you something. If we were to go by the local committee report, which characterizes what tribes should, the characteristics that a tribe should have to be included in a tribal list, let me tell you, majority of the tribes will not exist in that list. So this is in reference to what Dr. Haukip said about the fact that tribes have a very close identity to their land. The fact of the matter is that it's not just the tribes. It's populations who have lived in these lands, who have lived in these communities for as long as history can remember. And if we were really to go by what constitutes a tribe and what doesn't constitute a tribe, then, majority of the tribes, with the exception of some very remote tribes in, let's say, the Andamans, would not would not fall into these parameters. So I think the problem that has happened is that we've hardened our view basis of what suits us. It's not basis of what is rational. I don't think, and I've said this more times than not openly, that I don't think that one can deny the legitimate right the Meiteis have to demand for tribal inclusion, and anybody who thinks otherwise is being a hardliner, is being fairly irrational in my point of view. And I'm also sure that that is not the point of view of all other communities, all people who are in those communities, except, there's always one layer of people who believe in a hardliner thought. And that is what brings in these deficits, because, these are communities that have lived side by side. Yes, there have been skirmishes. These are historical problems, but to come to this point to say that the other person does not even have the constitutional right to demand for something, to me is fairly irrational. And I have no cream in this debate in terms of I'm neither a Naga, neither a Kuki, neither a Meitei, this is just a question of, just looking at things logically. Everybody will have to cede space. Everybody will have to look at the situation from the other point of view. Otherwise, there are going to be no long-term solutions. You can keep being a hardliner, and you can keep seeing the after effects of that on your state. Who else is it impacting? It's impacting you. To come to some mutual consensus, one has to soften their stance, and one has to also adapt to the environment. Now, there are legitimate fears here. We've already established, and right at the beginning of this series of debates that you've been having a month ago, there were people on your debate that flatly denied any infiltration. When I said that there was Myanmarese infiltration into the state, today it has become clear that there is infiltration. Now, that infiltration causes a demographic imbalance. It also causes legitimate fears in terms of marginalization, in terms of equitable sort of access to resources. And why should one not see it from the point of view of the person who is feeling marginalized? So I think, like you said, that flavors have been added and, things have changed to a dish that is so ancient. It's been done so because palates have changed and expectations have changed and resources have become more available, flavors have become more available. The same way, in this situation, the world is looking at India is looking at different parameters. The Northeast is looking at itself to be defined by different parameters, not by instability, not by insecurity. And if that has to be achieved, then that has to be achieved with, some sort of mutual understanding and, some sort of taking a step backward from any sort of hardliner view.
A lot of our guests, they use this word aboriginal. We are the original. Who is original? Sometimes I feel Rami is the king of Tripura. The dynasty, is that original? Because they came 600 years ago. Who is original? That really sometimes make me think, today what America is, India was 1,000 years ago. I shouldn't be saying that India was America 1,000 years ago. What I mean is that if you look at the story of Malik Amber, a slave who becomes a king in the Deccan 400 years ago, it just goes on to show that the sort of movement of humanity in the Indian subcontinent was substantial, Rami.
Karthikeya, that is a brilliant statement to make. It's a brilliant point to bring out about what an aboriginal is, because you'll be surprised to know that words like tribe, aborigine, animism was only included by the British in some of the early census. This wasn't a part of our civilizational mainstream consciousness, these sort of divisions. So Aboriginal also in Australia, it's used, because it was, the subjects that were used to define societies were anthropology and sociology, which were colonial arms. So they were Aboriginal for them because they came in as invaders. In a country like India, there is, in my opinion, no Aboriginal. Of course, people can debate, debate no end on this. But, to me, these are communities that have lived side by side. Boundaries have been drawn, borders have been drawn, and badly so, much later. So to look at somebody from this insider-outsider perspective, we defeat our own purpose of looking at ourselves as a unified population. Having said that, ever since the Union of India has existed, there have been rules and regulations, and that rule of law has to be followed. And any sort of illegal infiltration and migration into this country now can be seen as illegal, But to get into this debate of who is indigenous, who is Aboriginal, we are using the same colonial lens that the colonialists used, at us to divide our society. So, that point being made clear, I think, these are words that we should use with great amount of restraint.
Perfectly put. Dr. Umesh, you must have heard Rami very succinctly putting, defining this whole problem of, the word Aboriginal, how sociology and anthropology were the colonial arms, and how new identities were created by new classifications. For example, like denotified tribes in North India, or criminal tribes. Brijesh, before I go to my guests, because they have come here, can you just take me through the larger understanding with the officials of Home Ministry and Amit Shah are conducting this meeting, so that we get a sense of the government of India?
Well, see, the government of India tried their level best to quell the violence. It was very clear right from day one that, on the 3rd of May, 5th of May, you had Article 355 imposed, so that the levers of the security were with the central forces. But the fact of the matter is that, despite the visit, despite the imposition of Article 355, despite being the levers of the security with the Home Minister, and despite Home Minister coming there for 4 days and, making all the right kind of noises, they have not been able to quell down the violence which is going on. And, the intensity has only increased. The targets have only gone bigger. And this is the reason why, I think the main reason of calling this all-party meet is to get everybody, to send a sense of purpose to everybody that yes, all political parties are on the one or on same page as far as this particular issue is concerned, violence in Manipur is concerned, and also to send out a message that that the government is not dealing on its own. To tackle the situation which is unfolding in the state of Manipur, but they are also taking other point of views along. As Nabakishore and others said, and rightly so, that this situation has been too little too late, but I would say better late than never. And I think this meeting is not going to solve anything for it, but I think it's a positive start, because the opposition parties have also been blaming the government for not taking them into confidence, for not taking their point of view into confidence. And this I think is just the first of many such meetings, I would say. The Congress party has already announced that at 5 o'clock they will hold a press conference at 24 Akbar Road, where Jairam Ramesh and Ikram Aibobi Singh, who is the former Chief Minister of Manipur, they will be holding a press conference. So I would assume that the this all-party meet is going to end somewhere in the range of 4:30 to 4:45.
4:30 to 4:45. Dr. Umesh, the meeting is halfway through. People will have their views. I don't think meetings change views. At least in meeting, people exchange views. And at least in the meeting, you get to hear yourselves. The steam is out. I would say that this is the first baby step. A lot of people were telling me yesterday night, when I worked up my sources, if that's the way, I can define my experience of a journalist to you, that it's more of a exchange of views, Don't expect a big announcement immediately. Dr. Ramesh.
Okay, thank you, Kartiki, for having me. And I
It's a
hope
pleasure
today
having you, sir.
at least, am I audible?
Absolutely.
Okay, thank you so much for having me. And I hope today at least we'll maintain some decorum in this, in your show. So I think it's a very, welcoming move, for having these all-party meetings, organized by the Union of Ministers. So I personally welcome this, this meeting. I also would like to say it is, this meeting is organizing after loss of the many life, more than 100 life, but it's a positive sign to my understanding. But I also have some doubt. What kind of resolution this meeting will bring out? But I'm not sure that. I still having doubt that these meetings may not immediately resolve the present crisis, which is happening in Manipur since more than 50 days. So I think it's may not have that much. What we expect, our expectation is to bring to the normalcy in the state of Manipur, and I think most of the people who are attending this, in this meeting, they should not try to make any attempts for their political gain and to get some political opportunity. They should be very serious about the killing which is happening in the in Manipur. So let's see what would be the outcome of this meeting. But it's my appeal to all the political party who are attending in this meeting. They should not try to make any sort of attempt for their political gain.
So you are basically saying that politicians should be independent of political gain. It's like a very difficult thing. It's a very tough thing, for happen. It's a very tough thing, It's like really to say, on the lighter side, journalists should not hunt for stories, If it's like expecting politicians not to have a political or not to think of a political gain. Very tough, You have set standards like up there. I'm also joined by Colin Hoykop, Associate Professor, Center for Linguistics. Welcome, sir. Am I audible to you?
Thank you.
Thank
yeah.
you. Your first reaction on the meeting, which is taking place. Do you feel that members can at least now speak as Manipuris and not like Kukis and Metis and Naga?
Definitely. I think this all-party meeting is. It came too little, too late. But I think it is a significant step that has been taken. But I still believe that the situation in Manipur warrants a president's rule, and all party delegation, all these negotiations taking place, I don't think that it would yield fruit. The need of the hour is to impose president's rule and to contain the violence first, and later on we can explore the possibility of negotiations, dialogues, and so on. I think first thing is to impose president's rule. Right now, the life and liberty, the property of the marginalized peoples are in danger. So I think these aspects need to be taken into account.
Okay. Subir Bhaumik ji also joins us. Dada, am I audible to you?
Yeah.
Okay. There's a bit of a, yes. Dada, the meeting has started. And in this meeting, all the lawmakers are there. There's going to be a presentation. Once the presentation is done, then the responses would be elicited for them. There's a certain briefing which is also going to take place. Ministry of Home Ministry officials are there. So, and it's taking place in Parliament Library. Do you think that it should be succeeded by reconstitution of some sort of a peace committee? There was an interfaith council which went, and when I saw the nat of the governor, which missed a lot of people, she was saying that the violence in Manipur had been unprecedented and she had never seen anything like that. The voice got caught on the nat. It was not supposed to be there. It was not supposed to be there. But that was the most telling thing which she said. Let's play this out again, and then we'll take Mr. Bhaumik's reaction.
इस यूनिवर्सिटी बंद है, कॉलेज बंद है, छोटे छोटे बच्चे, और मैंने जाकर कैंपों का दौरा किया, विजिट किया, फिर सरकार के साथ ये सारी चीज़ों की मैंने मांग भी किया कि कुछ इस लोगों की इमीडिएट कुछ राहत मिले। तो केंद्र सरकार ने भी करीब 100 करोड़ के लगभग पैकेज भेजा है कि इमीडिएट कैंपों में रहने वालों को खान पान, प्रेसिडेंट का भी फोन आया कि हो गई है कि होता थे, लोग विरोध करते थे अपनी अपनी डिमांड, लेकिन इस तरह की हिंसा कभी कम्युनिटी वाली नहीं हुई, जो एक दूसरे से नफरत थी और एक दूसरे के प्रति जो आ गया कि मतलब जितने कुकी कम्युनिटी के लोग थे वो मतलब उनकी सुरक्षा कुकी डिस्ट्रिक्टों में करना पड़ा और मेथी कम्युनिटी के लोगों को यहाँ पर लाना पड़ा। जितने भी जिले में स्टेट के, मणिपुर स्टेट डिस्ट्रिक्ट में जो भी है, और उनको उस एरिया में रखा गया जहाँ उनकी अपनी कम्युनिटी है। तो मैं यहाँ पर चूरा उनकी अपनी सुविधाएं हैं वो तत्काल सारा कुछ बार चीफ सेक्रेटरी और ऑल मंत्रियों से मेरी मीटिंग्स और राष्ट्रपति को भी लिखा है कि आप इस मामले में
more than anything, Dada, it just reeks of helplessness.
You see, I don't have huge expectation from this meeting anyway. We'll have to, of course, get the details about what's happened there and who said what and what kind of views were expressed by the different stakeholders who have been called to this meeting. This is, I think, too little, too late. And also, it all depends on how you steer the meeting, the success of the meeting in starting a peace process, if not a political dialogue immediately, will depend on 2 or 3 things. Number one, what kind of a roadmap the central government can actually put across to the different political parties and to the different community people in Manipur. Because unless you are very clear about what you are trying to do, I don't think you're going to get anywhere. Secondly, the understanding of the ground situation, how that reflects in this meeting. Because if different people have different ideas, if the cookies think, cookie groups, and some other political parties think that only president's rule is the answer, and there are others who think that there should be no president's rule, then the whole thing, the whole meeting can get stuck on these kind of controversial points, and you don't expect much progress, because then it will reflect the entirely divergent and contradictory sort of standpoints that people have on these meetings. So I am not expecting something great out of this meeting, but it's good that better late than never, that you have a meeting like this, which was long overdue. It should have been held a month back, if not earlier, but better late than never. So I will keep my fingers crossed. And since I don't immediately have any take on how the meeting is going, I have some people there. I know people who are in this meeting, but they are in this meeting and they will not take calls, and I'm not a fool trying to call them at this point of time, because I've been a journalist long enough to understand that people don't take calls in these kind of meetings. You have to leave your mobile phones at the gate, perhaps. The point here is, I will wait for the meeting to end. I'll wait for but one thing I can say is that if the viewpoints expressed are totally contradictory and there is no spirit of accommodation from either side, then I don't really expect much. But it's true, from what we have heard of our panel here, is that the views expressed by the different people are of an extreme nature. So if some people think only president's rule can help, and others think president's rule is a no, it can't be brought in, there has to be some kind of an effort to find a solution without clamping president's rule, then it may be that on this single demand of president's rule, yes or no, the whole meeting can get stuck in this. I've had experience of these kind of things, that when one issue strongly expressed can actually derail a whole meeting. But I will not go into speculation, because I don't believe in needless speculation, because I as yet don't have a direct access to anybody who has attended the meeting. And in these kind of meetings, you can't form opinions by speaking to one side, one type of people. You have to speak to different people. That's, good journalism all about.
Dada, Rami,
so
Rami, before you used one word, she said that all of them will need to cede space. I'll take the conversation from there. How do you,
I agree with her.
How do you cede space?
Cede space is very simple. Yeah, this is not a something that we will not understand. Ceding space means that somebody who is talking of president's rules today and somebody who is saying absolute no president's rule, both have to climb down from their president. So Rami is right. Somebody has to leave a bit here and somebody has to leave a bit there. That's how accommodation happens. Accommodation doesn't happen if you stick to your own point, president's rule or no dialogue. If somebody takes that point and others said no way president's rule किसी तरह होने नहीं देंगे, हो गया वहीं पे खत्म हो जाएगा. So ceding space actually makes sense. That's what the politics of accommodation is all about. Politics of confrontation and politics of accommodation are different. Now what Rami has said, ceding space actually talks about, she is actually trying to dwell on the politics of accommodation, which will be the need of the hour to find a solution, and solutions are always found. If I leave little bit of my point, I climb down and you also climb down. It can't be a one-way traffic. So I would imagine that you need more than, you need actually a spirit of accommodation to make a success of these kind of meetings. Otherwise, if the positions are too hard, that president's rule or no talk, khatam, we have no faith in this government. Viren has to go, president's rule has to come. Now, if somebody takes an absolute position like this, then of course, I don't expect much out of this meeting. So ceding space is important. Ceding space, i.e., climbing down from their known standpoints, will be the most important thing if this meeting has to go forward in the process of finding some kind of a solution, or at least in controlling tempers, which is the first stage for finding a solution. Because if both sides only howl at each other and say president's rule or nahi to nahi, and somebody says no way president's rule,
okay,
finished, meeting goes there, it evaporates in thin air, all hopes, all expectations. But this is very late in the day that this has come. This should have come before the positions really hardened. You know what happens in a crisis like this, and this is my experience, that if this fighting goes on too long and people keep getting killed, the feeling then is, both sides, the positions get very hardened. If it is early days into the conflict and a meeting is called and people make an effort to, then it's easier to find solutions than if it really drags on and you call a meeting after 1.5 months. Better late than never is, of course, the fact here. And we should have a meeting. There's no way other than meeting and talking. But I have a feeling that, this should have happened before the positions hardened to the point that we can now see them.
Okay. Yes, that's a wonderful point. Now, Rami, before I go back to Dr. Rumesh, before I go back to other guests, do you think that before the ethnic tensions are calmed, it requires an inter-party delegation to go to Manipur? At least all the political parties on one page, and they start to support the government. Some sort of a backdoor or a side door participation, taking them on the page.
Karthikeya, that is what dreams are made up of. I don't think that is really going to be possible. I just heard some of the bites that some of these people were giving. I mean, this great virtue signaling, this great amount of concern from the Northeast, it was evident by what they were saying that they don't know where Manipur is on the map. I would rather these sort of people don't go and give their two bits without having any sort of factual, historical, political, rational understanding of the situation. I think somebody even alluded to some conflict happening with Sikkim. I mean, it's bizarre, that, statements like this are being made by political leaders and representatives of political parties on television. So yeah, I don't, it'll be great if that happens. I don't know what will come out of it, because Manipur is a very complex state. I've always said that. I've said that it's difficult to understand its dynamics. It's been through its ups and downs, more than other states. So I don't know how that would help, but definitely I think, one can hope for the best with this sort of a meeting in Delhi. One can hope for further steps to happen. But eventually, like somebody mentioned on your panel, that eventually we're looking for long-term solutions, and those long-term solutions are only going to come from once the tempers are have been subsided to a certain extent, once there's some amount of rational thinking among civil society and representatives, and an open dialogue can happen with the understanding that some amount of space to all demands will have to be adjusted according to what the situation demands.
Dr. Hauke, and after that I'll come to Dr. Ramesh. Do you think that there has to be some sort of it's like having a conversation, NRC and separate administration? And I know as a journalist there cannot be a common meeting point. But if I say, well, you have autonomous district councils, 6, 4 are pending, but the autonomous district councils under 6th schedule are better, dealt with, because you don't have a deputy commissioner between the district councils and the governor, but in the 6th schedule you have district councils and the governor directly interacting with each other. Then there is a common space. Dr. Hauke.
Yeah, before I respond to that second question, I would like to continue with the way out to the present situation. I think it's not the cookies who say that there is a complete breakdown of law and order situation in the state. I think the former general and the union minister Ramzan himself says that there is a complete breakdown of law and order situation. If there is a complete breakdown of law and order situation, the only solution is to have a president's rule. And so I don't think any other step would be necessary at the moment. It would always be nice to say that in party delegation, peace dialogues and so on, we can talk about. But I think there has to be a ground situation where conflicts have to be contained at all costs, and only then we can start exploring the possibilities of having dialogues, inter-community dialogues and so on. Regarding the separate administration, I think right now the tribal hill areas are governed by autonomous district councils, which do not come under the 6th schedule. It has been a long-standing demand of the tribals, but thus far it has not been granted. Despite repeated reminders from the central government, the state government continues to resist the possibility of bringing the hill areas under 6th schedule. I think the grievances of the tribals are also strongly connected to this long-standing denial. The separate administration demand, I think, is the inevitable outcome of the magnitude of the conflicts, the magnitude of the destruction, the hate campaigns that have been peddled against the Houthis. I don't think there is any other way. Whether the feasibility or the infeasibility of separate administration is a different matter. But I think these are demands that arise out of the complete anger and dissatisfaction with the present administration. And secondly, it is also important to note here that the current chief minister, there is no doubt that he's a polarizing figure. So long as he sits in the chair, I don't think there can be any meeting point between the Métis and the tribals at the moment. It is important that the central government exercise a lot of wisdom and tries to replace or at least impose Article 355, where the security affairs of the state is in the hands of the central government. Otherwise, I don't think the cookies would have any semblance of fate in the current administration of the government. So, at this point, what I would like to say is that the separate administration demand of the cookies needs to be examined with great care and concern, because they are no longer allowed to settle in there. They will no longer be have the courage and have the interest to go back to the capital city in Far to settle there and start their normal day life. In such a situation, how can the state government continue to adopt a user day-to-day affairs of the state? It is important for the government, the central government, to see to it that the security of the cookies are assured. Only then we can think about exploring any other possibilities.
But Dr. Ramesh, why can't my question, the autonomous district council, why can't they be restructured to fulfill the demand of empowering the tribal community under the sixth schedule?
Yeah, I mean, to the first question, I mean, there is no questions of, I mean, PR, president rule in the present situation, because as you know that when the Union Home Minister took the charges of the law and order situation of Manipur on 5th May. And now the situation, the law and order situation of Manipur is looked after by Kuldeep Singh under the instruction of the Union Home Minister. So I think it's almost similar to PR, and the present Chief Minister Biren Singh is just a puppet. I mean, he has nothing to do with this present situation. All the present situation is looked after by the Union Home Minister through Kuldeep Singh. And in this situation, we should not use the term tribal. And Kuki is not representing the entire tribal community who are inhabited in the state of Manipur. So I mean, we should have an autonomous tribal for autonomous administration for the tribal. Kuki cannot represent the whole tribal community inhabited in Manipur. And one more thing, they already have Hill Area Committee within the State Assembly. All the laws is to be approved by the Hill Area Committee. They already have given the Hill Area Committee. So in order to bring a permanent solution, I mean, for the moment, for a short-term policy, we need to think about how to stop this violence, this act of violence. But to bring out the permanent solution, we also need to think about the non-tribal people's right to settle down and vote in the scheduled area. I think, I mean, this right of the non-tribal to settle in the scheduled area is not taken away by the 5th schedule. So this is also needs to be considered. And why not? I mean, if Article 370 can go, why not Article 371C? So we all need to think about all the entire community, not for a specific community. So I think the state government, both state government and the union state government should not act under the conditions laid down by the Kuki community.
Rami, I think this is the first time I have heard this argument. If the 370 can go, why not 371C? Because 371C operates in Northeast and in many areas.
Quite right, but I think that is going to be a very tough step to take because, as you would appreciate, the precarious position in the politics between tribals and what are termed as non-tribals. So of course that is a very valid argument. But apart from an argument being valid, we have to look at its applicability also without causing tensions, and that I think is a little bit, we are still a bit far away from that, considering the situation we find ourselves in today. I think the most that can be done right now is some sort of political intervention, some sort of leveling of the field in terms of people coming together, political parties coming together, civil society coming together, just calming down, and then looking at this from the point of view as a long-term solution in terms of what people have been demanding for a long time, which is related to land. And we have to also look at it from terms of Imphal being such a hugely populated area where clearly the Maithis are limited to, and so on and so forth. But that population is also going to increase in the next 10 years, and Imphal is not going to be able to sustain. Its resources are not going to be able to sustain, and it's going to become, absolutely unlivable. So, one has to look at it from that future perspective also, as to where are we going with these land rights, because, it's absolutely unimaginable that 80% of the population still growing is going to be contained in Imphal. So looking at it logically, looking at it rationally is the only thing one can hope for. But these are again long-term discussions, and I think they're not. No solution is going to come anytime soon on it, Kartikeya.
Rami, when we talk in context of land, there's an added issue to it. Dada, if you're there with me, Bhaumik this exclusive control of land in context of communities. And this is something which started with our colonial masters, where you described a community, you audited them, and then you said, well, it belongs to them. Do you think that imaginative land use is central to redefining the way we conceive Northeast and the way state and the central government runs Northeast, Dada?
Well, I am very clear about one thing, and that is land alienation of tribals has been a very serious problem. And it's not just a Tripura problem. This has been in the story in Assam. This has been everywhere in the Northeast, except states which are almost wholly tribal, like Nagaland or Mizoram. But even in Nagaland and Mizoram, if you go to Dimapur, you go to some of the border areas of Mizoram, you will find this story of land alienation. So protecting tribal land, which is at the moment the only, 20 years or 50 years from now, with high level of education, high employability in other sectors, this may not be the case. But at the moment here, if you do away with this, protection of tribal land and provisions in constitution that ensures that, you are going to cause so much alienation among the tribal communities. And I say this being a non-tribal, being a Bengali from Tripura, where this is a serious issue. I don't believe that if you take away, imaginative views and all that, but if the tribal lands, the tribals are not masters of their own land and others can buy it, land alienation will cause more insurgencies in the Northeast, more problems in the Northeast. I can give it to you in writing, you can check it out. If you think that imaginative land use means allowing the corporates to run riot and buy and, take away tribal lands and set up factories there and all that, I'm not against industrialization. But I am a strong believer in the need to protect tribal rights and, I'm not trying to relive the ghost of Barrier Elvin here. But, people who know Northeast will understand what I'm trying to drive at. But land alienation is the cause of tribal insurgency in most parts of Northeast. Definitely Tripura, definitely Assam, to an extent also in Manipur. But, so if you do away with provisions which allows the tribal to protect his own land and which is not transferred under pressure, of a commercial economic nature, because the tribals did not have this habit of savings. And at times when they need money, they will pawn off their land because they don't have any other resource. Now these are poor tribal farmers whose only resource is land, and if they pawn it out and if they lose it at some point of time, and the whole area is flooded by people who are not their people, then they get this feeling that we have become foreigners in our own land. So point here is that if you do away with these, protective measures for protection of tribal land until such time when the tribals have other ways of sustaining themselves and are not depending totally on land. At the moment they do. So that is why, this whole issue of poppy cultivation becomes so important. That why they plant poppy. It's not because, because the Burmese are coming and offering them, but because they don't have other crop alternatives or nothing has been told to them, that they turn to poppy to make a decent income, because wet rice cultivation, which is possible in the plains, is not possible in the hills. So point is, I would do wet rice cultivation in the flat land that I have in my own farm in Tripura. But in the undulating, hill land, the foothills, I would have to do rubber, I would have to do spices, some other things. The point here I will make is, I'm a strong believer in the need to protect tribal land and to avoid land alienation among tribals, because that is one of the prime cause of insurgency. And if people don't understand this, in the name of corporatization, इधर भी अंबानी अदानी को घुसने का मौका कर दिया जाए, you are asking for serious trouble. Now this, everything is dynamic in society. After a point of time, when most tribal boys and girls would not be interested in possessing land, they would actually go and work elsewhere and do other kinds of occupations. Then things are different. But till such time, the majority of tribals across Northeast depend on land as their prime resource. Alienation of tribal land is a dangerous thing, and therefore any quick measure to do away with these protective measures can be a disaster, number one. And number two, finally, let me make this point. I again believe that some people will get upset, Manipur cannot be Tripura, but we sorted out the tribal insurgency problem in Tripura by granting six schedule provisions to the tribal council there. It worked. It has worked. And that's why the insurgency in Tripura has been controlled. It's also true that some other tough measures were also taken. But primarily this was there. Now, if the sentiment is do away with 371C, all these were created in a certain historical context. And if you try to do away with all this in a hurry, just because you think that there is no need for any kind of protection anywhere in India, and just because something has happened in Kashmir, it should also happen in Northeast. God bless the Northeast, and God bless the people who are trying to rule it. Thank you.
So you are talking about sixth schedule. You spoke about land organization. I have a question, anyone can answer that. If 80% of the population is living in the land, then if the population expand, where will they go? How do you reconcile? On most of my shows, I have, taken that line of how do you deal with the anxieties which the Kuki community face, because they have been called outside. But how do you deal with the anxiety of the Meitei community, which feels trapped in its own land, in the sense that they can't go beyond the Imphal Valley? It's an open question to my panelists.
Well, who should answer it? Should I?
Yeah. I wish to answer.
Oh, okay.
I think, I fully concur with Bhaumik's opinions about the understanding the historical context with regard to the institutional arrangements made for the tribals. I think interfering with the existing arrangement would be leading to opening a Pandora box. Keeping aside that, I think the land alienation of the Métis is exaggerated. In my opinion, the Imphal Valley is the most fertile region in the state, which can support a good number of population, whereas the hill areas, even though statistically it is said to be 90%, are fully covered with forest, gorge, and so on, which is not really ideal for supporting a human habitation. So if you look at the settlement areas of the tribals as well, you will see only in small pockets where there are foothills and so on. And at the same time, it is also important to understand that immigration, the bogey of immigration is also exaggerated, in my opinion. If you look at the Chin Hills, where the Kukis, who are known to be Chins in the other side of the border, Chin state is a territory bigger than Manipur and has a population less than 5 lakhs. And across the border with Manipur as well, it is the Kuki Chin tribe communities are set up very thinly populated areas. So the immigration bogey is, I think, raised commonly in order to suit the larger narrative to secularize the Kukis for the reasons best known to the radical organizations in the valley. So I don't think that immigration of the Kukis from Burma, which the Métis tend to raise, is really a threat to the demography of the state. At the same time, I'm also wondering why the Métis and the political leaders, parties, and so on have not been raising any issue about the continuing return of the Métis from other parts of the world, like Bangladesh, Burma, even from Assam. There has been a recorded returning of the natives from other parts of the region. And this is largely because of the larger majoritarian ideology that tries to conflate majoritarian ethnicity with state identity or with citizenship. Whereas migration from across the border from Burma is seen as a national security threat and so on. And so we need to look into these aspects where the majoritarian agenda is continually trying to erode the institutional arrangements made for the tribals, plus the immigration bogey, which tries to see the Métis as the legitimate citizens of the state of Manipur, whereas the Kukis are seen or constructed as the illegitimate, and so on. And coming back to the land alienation of the Métis, I think one aspect that needs to be explored is that most of the centers of higher learning, government infrastructure, all the hospitals and so on are jostling for space in the valley areas. In order to contain the migration of the tribal areas into the valley regions, it is important that all these infrastructures are also adequately made available in the Hill District headquarters. I'm sure that in modern times, this tribal value-ward migration to valley is largely because of a lot of education, employment opportunities, hospitals, and so on. If these arrangements are also adequately made available in hill areas, I think the concerns of the natives can be adequately addressed. Yeah.
Okay, Dr. Umesh, would you like to react to this before I go to Bhaumik ji?
Yeah, I just want to put something. Before coming to this, all about the autonomous, separate administrations and autonomy. So, we have to find out, we have to detect about illegal immigrants influx from the foreign country. First, we have to detect who are illegal migrants, and how they have been enter into Manipur, and who are the collaborators to help them in bringing in the soil of the Manipur, and where they do settle, and what are the agenda of those people who help those illegal migrants in bringing into the soil of the Manipur. So we also need to look into this, very carefully, and we have to identify, we have to find out the illegal migrants. So it is a fact, it is a reality that there are lots of influx from the Myanmar in Manipur. It's a fact. And it also, I have already mentioned in your previous show that migration took place, in 3-4 phases in Manipur. It's since 1950, but I don't want to come to again in that context. But most of the refugees who have been given shelter in the Manipur, they never went back to Myanmar. It is very clear. So, and in this present crisis, we also need to think: is there any kind of force behind all this thing? Why this crisis is continuing till now more than 50 days? Is there any forces behind all this violent crisis? So, one of the claim both from the Meitei community and other community who belong to the Naga, you may find that there is no any Naga in Susampu, but you will find Kuki in every part of the Manipur. Because Naga and Meitei, they have close affinity to the land they inhabited. They don't want to encroach other land. But this is not happening in case of the Kuki. And they have lots of, they are not using they don't have any common nomenclature about this ethnic group. They are using the term Kuki, Sin, Kuki, Mizo, Kuki, Jomi, many things. So they also have some issue within the Kuki community. They have issue, identical related issue they have. So it is also one factual issue. So before coming to the autonomy, and before coming to have, and one more thing, if you give autonomy, separate administration to the Kuki community, I can guarantee that after some year they will demand for a separate state. Now, you must be aware that when national highway number 2 is blocked.
Dr. Umesh, I had asked one question, I wish you
Yeah.
can answer that. I said, if 6th schedule and autonomous district councils can work, don't you think that's the way in Manipur? Because please pardon my basic understanding, the ADCs in Manipur have to be mediated by a deputy commissioner, but ADC under 6th schedule directly goes to the governor. Don't you think that empowerment is the way forward, sir?
No, that not resolve the issue. That will create more issue. Why? I mean, why we should have division of hill and valley in the hill state Manipur? Manipur is a hill state. It is already recognized in the Planning Commission. Manipur is a hill state. Why there is a division of hill and valley in the hill state Manipur? It's a colonial legacy. So it should be removed in order to bring, a solution for all the community who are inhabited in the Manipur. So 6th schedule won't be a permanent solution. I can guarantee.
Okay,
It's
so
not
you
a
are saying
permanent
that.
solution.
So you are saying that.
Let me complete. We also need to look into about the right of the non-tribal to settle in the scheduled area. Why this non-tribal doesn't have the right to vote in the scheduled area? And we already have hill area committee within the state assembly, and all the law related to the hill area is to be approved by the hill area committee.
You have to.
And their land is already protected. And Meitei land, 10% of the Manipur total land is not protected. Everybody can settle.
Okay.
Even a Bengali can come and settle. Bengali can buy a land in the valley, and Marwari can buy a land. They can settle. Even Kuki are settling in the valley. Even Naga are settling in the valley. Why this kind of issue is not to be taken into consideration?
Okay.
Where is the right for the non-tribal people to settle in the settled area?
Okay, I think
Their
Dr.
right
Ramesh,
is not-
Dr.
their-
Ramesh,
their-
point.
yeah.
I got your point, because this was the question which I had asked, and the question was, how do you deal with the expanding Meitei population? Dada, you wanted to come in on this? Bhaumik ji, I think you took a quite quick nap.
Yeah,
Dada,
man.
I caught you. You took a quick nap. I caught you.
Yeah, if you are hearing the same thing again and again, it's better to take a nap.
But
The
Dada,
point is,
sometimes talking about the same thing can resolve a lot of things.
I don't think so. ये घिसा पिटा चक्कर एक ही चीज आप. Yeah, I exactly know who is going to say what. So, anyway, it's not that I'm losing interest in this debate, but it's beginning to sound so predictive and so, monotonous. But I can say one thing for sure, and this I'm absolutely clear about. There is a crisis over land, and the way to solve it is to come up with an imaginative land use policy. And that imaginative land use policy has never been tried by any government in Manipur. Nobody has tried, for example, to try new different crops. Now, I don't agree with Dr. Haukip on one point that, you can grow valley land is very productive and hill land is not. It all depends on what kind of crop you go for in which part. There are certain crops which are very remunerative in terms of commercial gain, but which can't be actually grown in floodplains, by which I mean where the area gets flooded. Rice will grow there, but there are certain other crops which need drainage, and water should not. There should be no water logging. And those crops like rubber, there are other spices which grows very well there. We have tried this out in Tripura at the risk of bugging somebody who would immediately jump up and say, oh, Tripura, Manipur can't be Tripura. I will again say, come to Tripura and see how this whole issue of crop substitution has been done. We have given thought to it. We have researched this. And these things have been done by people who understand land. The trouble is, most of these urban people, urban petty bourgeois understanding of land, we have seen this in West Bengal. People like Buddhadev Bhattacharya did not understand land, like the previous generation of communist leaders. And therefore Singur happened. And there was so much trouble. This new generation of SFI, DYF people who have grown out of the coffee houses of JNU and Jadavpur and Calcutta University don't understand land. And that's why there is so much trouble. I do, of course, because I'm a farmer myself. We do cultivation and we have continuously evolved our practices to make land more productive. And the whole thing here is imaginative land use. And also there is a second thing, economic development, education, which will mean that less and less people will depend on land for livelihood. And this can happen with Métis, this can happen with tribals. So quality education and mobility. Now somebody is saying, the Métis are sticking to their land, the Nagas are, the Kukis are all over the place. My dear sir, social mobility, occupational mobility is a fact of life in a modern state. And if some social scientist or pretentious social scientist does not understand it, I don't know what kind of understanding is this. This is primordial understanding, not expected of social scientists. Occupational and social mobility is a fact of life in the modern state. And therefore, if somebody can go from Manipur and buy a flat in Delhi, why can't a Bengali go and buy a land in Imphal? If you want to provoke, you will get it back. So, I expect sensible things. If you pretend to be a social scientist, have some understanding. Your understanding cannot be primordial.
We may have different.
Yes, Dr. Ramesh. Wait a minute. Yes, Dr. Ramesh. Yes.
I mean, we should mention some decorum.
Dada, please.
I don't want to come to that level.
Dada, please.
You break all the decorum and you lecture about decorum.
Dada.
When you get the fire.
Dada.
No, when he gets the fire, he talks
what
of
kind
decorum.
of person he is?
Dada. No, please.
Oh my
please.
God.
Please.
I'm sorry, Kartiki.
No.
I won't be longer here.
No. Dr. Ramesh, you stay with me. No. You will stay with me, Dr. Ramesh. Dr. Ramesh, you speak. Dr. Ramesh, you speak.
Again and again. It's happened again and again.
Dr. Ramesh, you stay with me. Dr. Ramesh, you stay with me.
We may have many disagreement, right?
Dr. Ramesh, you stay with me.
We may have disagreement.
Yes.
We may have different viewpoints.
You talk of decorum when you can't stand up in the...
Dr. Ramesh, you stay with Dr. Ramesh. Dr. Ramesh, Dr. Ramesh, you listen to me now. Dr. Ramesh, you listen to me. You speak.
I'm fed up. Actually, I'm fed up.
No, you speak. This mic belongs to you now. Dr. Ramesh.
I'm fed up to be here, which is person.
Dr. Ramesh, this mic belongs to you now.
There are more than 48,000 people in Delhi.
Dr. Ramesh,
there are more than 48. There are more than 48,000
belongs to you.
South Indian in Delhi.
Dr. Ramesh, this mic belongs. Listen to me, Dr. Ramesh. Listen. You speak. The mic belongs to you. Please. I'm giving the mic to you.
I don't want to have any argument with such people. I'm sorry.
No.
I already.
You don't have to argue. You don't have to argue.
Just a minute. Please listen to me. I have already told to William that I have some work at.
Dr. Ramesh. Dr. Ramesh. Please.
Well, I think, when we are discussing this,
please,
I would request my guests.
You take questions, you will only take questions from me. No one else. You will only take questions from me, no one else. Only Brijesh will speak.
I would like to request Dada also that I agree with the fact that yes, there can be a difference of opinion. We can have an absolute 180-degree difference of opinion, but I think we should refrain from getting personal with the guest, because he also said the same thing. We should completely refrain from getting personal. I may completely be pro or anti or whatever. I may not like his view or anybody's view or Kartikeya's view. I disagree with him most of the time, but there is a level of civility which has to be maintained. We cannot get personal, and I would request all our panelists and guests. We have been doing this for the last more than 50 days, and I would seriously request that let's maintain the decorum. My apologies, sir, and I would request our guests to please be civil, have as much divergent view. That is the reason why we have 3 people who talk differently and all, but we cannot have any guest calling any guest personal names or breaking the boundaries of in which a civil conversation takes place. Shira, I just wanted to ask you one more thing. When people say that the cornerstone of the argument which you said, that anybody can come here and buy land here in the valley, but they cannot buy the land in Imphal. People say that anybody can go buy land in the rest of the country, but the same law doesn't apply to you. This is I think in the crux of what Mr. Bhaumik was saying. Would you like to respond to that?
No, what I'm saying is why we cannot buy land in the hill area? We can buy, no issue. You can buy land in the valley, but why not in the hill area? Why not in the hill area? We can buy flat in Delhi, but I cannot buy land in the hill area, in Sampur, in Kankukpi. So the main issue is we need to think about the total welfare of the state, not for a specific community. Why there is the division of hill and valley in the hill state Manipur?
Sir, there's also one counter argument. I'm just playing the devil's advocate here, and there's a counter argument which says that that you allow the tribal land is protected. It's like in certain parts of Chhattisgarh also, where you don't allow things to settle. Most of the hills, like in Uttarakhand, in Himachal Pradesh, outside people can't buy land in there. But yes, of course, I mean, the internal people can buy. So there's a degree of protection which is allowed to the tribal land. Do you think that that degree of do you think it would be wise to tinker with that decision?
No, I mean, why? What we are saying that because their land has already been protected by the constitution, right? When there is no any objection, but now after protecting their land, after having hill area committee within the state assembly, and now they are demanding for autonomy through the means of violence, right? Then after some time they will demand for a separate state, and till today, National Highway number 2 is blocked. The state, both union and state government, they are doing nothing. They can't do anything in the hill area. There is no rule of law in the hill area, especially dominated by the Kuki people. So we are very afraid. We have a sense of fear. What would they do? I mean, after some time, and they have been fighting with all the community. They fight with Agmar. They fight with Paite, they fight with Dimasa, they fight with Karpki, they fight with Naga also. They wanted to complete eviction of Naga from the More area. They have evicted Naga. And these people are encroaching land.
Okay. But Dr. Ramesh,
year by year. So therefore, what I'm saying is, first we need to detect, we need to find out the illegal migrant. And we need to find out how many unauthorized villages are there in the Kuki dominated area. After that, we can have a dialogue about the development, about the autonomy. So we should not allow illegal migrant to demand for an autonomy, to demand for a separate administration. So I have already repeated in your previous show also.
Okay.
So I don't want to.
You are trying to distinguish between demands of those who have come from outside and those who are already part of the state. Perfect enough.
Dr. I'm not talking about the entire. I'm not talking about the whole Kuki.
Okay.
There is old Kuki and new Kuki.
Okay.
And we need to find out.
Okay, Dr. Haukip. Dr. Haukip. Is that the issue? Is that the issue that the illegal migrant issue has become something which is dominating the narrative?
I think, sadly, given the asymmetry of power in the state of Manipur, where the media, the intelligentsia, the government, and so on, are largely dominated by the natives, whatever narrative that they pursue is largely, unfortunately, seen as legitimate. But it is far from true. The fact is that I have already mentioned that the body of illegal immigration is largely an exaggerated one. I had already told how Chin state is thinly a populated territory where immigration could hardly be posing a threat to the demographic stability of the state, Manipur. At the same time, if I may reiterate, the main things I'm surprised that they hardly talk about immigration from other parts of the country. Romesh has already mentioned about how the cookies have been dispersed in different parts of the region. I think communities in the Northeast are cross-border communities, and no one is an exception. The Nagas are found in Arunachal Pradesh, Nagaland, Assam, and so on. The Métis are also found in Assam, Manipur, Meghalaya, Bangladesh, and Burma, and so on. I think to stereotype a particular community uh, would be entirely wrong. And thirdly, Romesh has mentioned about how the Houthis have been fighting with different communities and so on. I think that would be a very prejudiced way of putting up the things. If you look at the insurgency, the history of insurgency, and the kind of crimes perpetrated, you will see that the valley has suffered a lot of violence for a long time. Migrant laborers have been killed by the valley-based Métis insurgent organizations. In fact, 5 of the valley-based organizations are declared as terrorist organizations by the Ministry of Home Affairs. So it is the ministry, it's not me, who labeled the insurgent organizations as terrorists. I think that speaks volumes about the nature of the Métis insurgency in the state. But I don't want to go far into that kind of argument. But it is important here to note that Romesh talked about take on the 6 kilo, the HSE, and so on. I think it smacks of a very deep majoritarian mindset. I think I would request my co-panelists to revisit the larger the premise of the affirmative action programs, the policies in the Constituent Assembly, the government of policy, which is largely based on protecting the minorities, the marginalized communities. And that is exactly the reason why the institutional protections are granted to the tribal communities in order to contain the ill effects of the majoritarian government and so on.
Okay.
I think to have an issue with that is, I think, you need to entirely restructure the constitutions. I think that would be entirely on the wrong.
Now, let me go back to Subir Bhaumik ji. Subir Bhaumik ji, 2 days ago, the Rajya Sabha member from Mizoram made a statement. We thought, to do a separate program on it. We were not able to. And that gentleman came out with a couple of tweets. And he said that he spoke about a particular ethnicity and said they can aram se settle here. We'll take their, we'll take up their cause. Since state boundaries overlap on the ethnic boundaries, do you think that it makes matter slightly more complex in Northeast? He is talking about a community whose issue is related to Manipur. Can you just take us through and give a bigger picture on this?
But first, let me say something here. You know, this land laws that you have been talking about and all the heat generated, I am a Bengali in Tripura. I cannot buy land in tribal area, tribal autonomous district council. I'm absolutely comfortable with it. There will be insurgency. We did a survey once among 442 insurgents who had gone underground. Out of them, 438 said that our lands were lost during 1960s, 70s because of the flood of refugees coming from East Pakistan. And therefore, I am absolutely sure that until such time these communities have other resources to look up to, protection of tribal land is important. I can't buy land. I would like to, but I can't buy land in tribal areas in Tripura. I am absolutely comfortable with it. So, I don't need any lectures on civility from anything. I am a person who believes in justice and fairness. And I'm not a communal or a parochial person. And I don't pander to majoritarianism. So I'm very clear about this. Number two, this complexity that Karthik you are talking about, I had written a piece on these lines, that this current explosion in Manipur has the dangers of reviving the greater Mizoram demand. You already have the greater Nagalim demand. Now, people who don't understand, they're raising this bogey of illegal migration, that the Kuki Chin Mizo tribe is a large transborder tribe that straddle the Indo-Myanmar frontiers. Like the Nagas, there are Nagas here in Manipur and there are Nagas in Nagaland and in Arunachal and in Assam and in Myanmar. Now, if you say that somebody who has come, all these people, because there are Nagas in Myanmar, all Nagas are foreigners in Manipur, or because there are Chins in, Myanmar, all cookies are by definition illegal migrant. This bogey of illegal migrations, which has now become a huge political narrative and has been used by certain political parties, actually is this root of many, many troubles that we are now facing. And those who raise this demand of NRC should revisit the NRC and the exercise in Assam. Today, Hemanta Viswa Sarma, who was the man who pushed this hard, and he's himself saying that the NRC has to be done again. Why? On Indian taxpayers' money. You think it's a joke? So my point here is very simple. Look at the history of and the nature of these tribal formations. Understand the essential anthropological realities. And without understanding that, if you superimpose a certain majoritarian view that anybody who is from the other, is cookie, all cookies are out, outside. Okay, now new cookie, old cookie. How do you differentiate? It's not an easy thing to do. Secondly, very important question here. Myanmar is in absolute turmoil. It has been since the 1980s when the first uprising against the military rule happened. Now, after the military coup in February 2021, Myanmar has degenerated into a civil war situation. And therefore, a lot of refugees are coming from there, and many of them belong to the Chin community. Now, they are refugees, okay? They are not internal migrants. They are not illegal migrants. They are refugees. They have come here. There may be some fears, genuine fears among Métis. I admit that. Like there are genuine fears, even in West Bengal, that, if there is a big problem in Bangladesh, people will come here and not go back, as has happened in the past. Those fears are genuine. But the point is, don't overdo them and don't brand a whole community as illegal migrants just because it suits your political narrative. The point here is, Karthikeya, the question you raised, is that if this problem goes on and on in Manipur and can't be tackled, Greater Mizoram demands, like the Greater Nagaland demand, is inevitable. Nobody is going to take things lying down. India is a democratic society. Everybody has a voice. Everybody will raise their voice. And when they can't raise their voice strong enough, they'll raise it with a gun. And this has been the history of Northeast. So if you want democratic politics to prevail, then a politics of accommodation has to be there. You don't lecture others on civility and don't practice it yourself. And you practice majoritarianism. This can't be going on. You have to come up with a politics of accommodation, some middle ground, so that Manipur remains intact. I am against any proposed breakup of Manipur, but I totally strongly advocate tribal autonomy, 6th schedule to the district councils, both, district council in the Kuki area and also in the Naga areas. They deserve autonomy, and autonomy is not a bad thing. Autonomy, if properly worked, will create a stakeholder instead of a rebel. And this whole fear that if you give them a district council under 6th schedule today, tomorrow they will demand a separate state. Well, in Tripura, we have seen that 6th schedule district council for tribals, despite that some people raised the demand of Tripura land. What happened to them? They lost the elections. The tribals didn't vote for them. Simple as that. Tribals didn't vote for them.
Okay.
So Maharaj Pradut Kishore, with all his long jump and high jump about Tripura land, got nowhere with his Tripura land demand. Why? Because the average tribal realizes that he has got substantial amount of stake in the state of Tripura, which is because he has got autonomy, he has got reasonable crop substitution, backup, he is making certain amount of good income out of land without having to plant poppy or ganja or cannabis. And therefore, this whole politics of Tripura land has been given a burial in Tripura. It has not worked. We did not have to go and kill 500 tribals to stop this demand. Grant of autonomy has helped it. So man, if you pretend to be a liberal, try to be a liberal, proper liberal here. Don't try to be parochial and then preach civility to others and preach decorum to others when you come under attack and you can't defend your position. You know, and I don't use a doctor before my name, but I'm also a PhD from a place.
No, Dada, that's absolutely all right. See, my limited contention was, and my limited point was that, you know.
If you start a fight, I will give it back to you.
Dada, nobody is starting a fight here. Dada, nobody is starting a fight here. All I'm saying is that, you know, in our show.
No, what is this? This is absolute parochialism.
No, Dada, that's all right. Dada, see, if we have everyone thinking about a single line, then there will be no difference of opinion. People can have a parochial view. People can have a macro look like you do have. It's a, you know, we are creature of our own surroundings.
So then what is the problem in giving Bin Laden 50 minutes of airtime in Al Jazeera? Fine, go ahead with it.
No. I'm saying that
call all the insurgent leaders and
nobody. Dada, you know you have been a regular part right from the word go. You know that we don't do that. You know that we don't do that. I mean, you know that we give audience to everybody.
Don't encourage parochialism on debates. Okay,
that's what I agree. You can counter him. All I am requesting you is that you please don't get personal. That's my limited request. You can counter him as much as you can. Nobody is stopping anybody from having a counter view. All of my request was to have a civil approach to that. We are also joined by Yashovardhan Azad. We are also joined by Yashovardhan Azad, former Special Director IB, and Dr. K. Romesh and Dr. Pauthing Haukip. Yashovardhan ji, first I'll go to you. This all party meet is going on. It's about to end any minute from now. Given the state of affairs in the state of Manipur, do you think that this all party meeting is an important step, or are we reading too much into it?
Well, I think it's an important step politically, very, very important. It may not lead to any substantive outcome, because, you know, any all-party meeting, unfortunately in India, starts leading to various kinds of, I blame you, you blame me, and you were the cause of this, and when I was there, this is happening. This is exactly the problem with an all-party meeting. But it has a very high symbolic gesture that all the parties have combined to do deliberations on Manipur, and that gives out a very powerful message. And secondly, I would even say that if you persist further, despite the differences, I'm sure, because from all the parties, none wants any kind of destabilization in Manipur, and they would come up with ideas. And there are a lot of ideas on Manipur which need to be tried, because we are actually in a very, very bad situation. So I would say, yes, a very good step. It may not lead to the desired outcome, but the gesture is a very important one, and they should keep persisting with it.
Yashovardhan ji, since you have dealt with these kind of scenarios for a very long time, I know perhaps the most well versed as far as tackling this kind of scenario. You know, there's a unified command on the ground. You know, there are thousands of boots on the ground. Yet the violence has not been able to, the state or the paramilitary the army have not been able to contain the violence as it should have been. NH2 continues to remain blocked. So what more steps do you think that the state or the center should do to ensure that at least the violence is under control? Because, you know, the Home Minister also said that, you know, first give me 15 days of peace and we will work out a political solution or get the entire situation under control. You know, how does the state intend to get the situation under control?
You see, this is the most important question in Manipur, that you have to get the law and order situation on ground and create a favorable climate for further talks. Now, as I'm given to understand that there is no formal announcement of the unified command. Today, the security advisor is there in charge, Kuldeep Singh, who was ex-DGC RPF, a man who's familiar with the terrain, is familiar with the force because he has been DGC RPF. And there are, a lot of boots on ground, paramilitary, Assam Rifle, some army columns have also moved in, and of course the state police. I think the first problem is the kind of terrain domination by different people. You understand what I mean. You know that a particular area is dominated by particular insurgents. And we've been seeing things for a long time that, these areas where vested interests develop, vigilante groups come up, village defense societies come up, and because they sort of lack faith in the security forces, which is coming up now in certain quarters. I would say that, the first thing to rein in is to establish the footprint of the state police. Mind you, all the other forces are basically for your help. So I would say, what is your biggest problem? You're seeing LMGs being fired at villages by the outside people. If this kind of automatic fire and sustained fire is out there, then Manipur is in a highly militarized zone area, right? And in a highly militarized zone area, you start with the basics. You have to tell the police stations and the SHOs, and I'm sure there are very good officers in Manipuri police at the IPS level, that you bloody well get the weapons back. Otherwise, you register cases and threaten them, because this is not a case where you're going to beg for arms by putting drop boxes outside. Number two, there is a thing called area domination. And area domination does not start, when your forces are distributed in, all kinds of law and order situations. Yahan pe aag lag gayi, yahan pe wo ho gaya. You have to start dominating street by street. As far as the national highway is concerned, there is another problem outside the villages, that women, the imams, are coming out, and I'm sure no forces would like to, fire or do a lathi charge. That is creating roadblocks. But if you re-energize the self-help groups, if you re-energize the civil society groups, I think some kind of sense will prevail in. There's another reason, the third reason, which some of the weapons are coming back because the ammunition has been exhausted. So, but the question is, unless you take some kind of penal action, if there is no fear of the law, if there's no fear of the institutions, then it will take a very, very long time. Fourth is the kind of intelligence which needs to be given. One is, of course, the actionable intelligence, which goes out to the people. And there is a lot of information. It's not that there is not there. Ask Dada Bhaumik. I mean, if you are in that area, you get information that particular village is vulnerable, particular area is vulnerable, planning is being done for this. Listen, the attacks on churches don't come on just like that. You know that there is something is happening. So I think intelligence is the next. So these are a couple of things, and a lot of more things I can talk about, operations and things like that. But they need to be looked at holistically. They need to be looked at. But the most important is to get the state police officers together. That is a very, very important thing. The DGP right now has been brought in from Tripura. There are local Manipur officers. Once upon a time, and I remember, because we used to go there very often, that Manipur was managed. There were some fantastic officers there. We need a bunch of them right there now to get on with the job. I think it's taking a very, very long time. Yes, if you have to be tough and if you have to be shooting sometimes, well, you better do it. But get it on ground as soon as possible.
Okay, that's a very firm and articulate response of Yashovardhan Azad ji. I would like to go to Dr. Umesh. Dr. Umesh, violence is one aspect in which we have spoken about a lot. There's a loot. There's a loot in all the armories have been looted. There have also been talked of how the armories have been gifted away. And despite the plea by the center, despite the plea by the state, despite the state coming up with boxes where people can deposit arms and all, so as to just to ensure that arms and all should get back to where it belongs, it is not happening. How do you see an end to this thing? Because until and unless the guns are brought back, it's any trigger happy person would be enough to light a matchbox and again throw the entire situation into chaos.
Yeah, I think not only from the Delhi people, and there are lots of weapons from the foreign, and I think Indian intelligence also knows about it. More than 8,000, sophisticated weapons come up in Manipur from the border of the Myanmar. And another thing is, and when some people started killing you, and you have no other option, and somehow through the mob, I think they have already taken away all those weapons from the state police to through mob, not by a single person, as far as I understand. So that is the issue. So some community, some group of militant group is firing, killing somebody else, other group, innocent people who doesn't have weapon. So they also have the obligation to protect their family, to protect their people. Suppose if even I were there in Manipur, I should have taken up the weapon because I have the obligation to protect my people. When some military group are attacking my village, I have to protect my village. It's my duty. So such kind of things happen, right? So from both sides, from both valley and the hillside, such kind of things happen. So now we have to look into, how to deal with this situation, and whether those people who are undersued are involved in this violent activities or not, and what could be the way forward. We need to look into that way in order to bring normalcy. So giving autonomy or demanding something is a different thing at this situation. That's not the solution. And the present situation of Manipur is quite different from that of the Tripura. One should understand it. The present situation that is happening in Manipur is quite different from that Tripura. I may have disagreement. I may have different perspective. I am against the autonomy. I am against the separate administration. And somebody may be in favor of the autonomy.
Absolutely.
Autonomy.
Absolutely. We all are entitled to our opinion. I completely get your point, and I'm not holding this.
Yeah, for having different opinion, for having disagreement, we should not come to this level.
I agree completely, Dr. Hauke.
Right.
How do you see the situation moving forward?
And Brajesh, can I say, because I have
is the question.
Just Dr. Hauke, just one second.
Please, let's respect each other. So thanks for inviting me again after a brief interruption. So the way forward, we are yet to await the outcome of the all political meet. So that is in the waiting, and we'll see and react depending on what outcome it has come. So, but all the political parties, I hope they put in forth their minds and thoughts to the ongoing issue of Manipur, which has taken the lives and property of thousands and thousands of people and led to the mental agony of children and so on and so forth. Now, the only way forward, to my mind, is that the only viable solution is to map out. We have to map out an alternative arrangement with adequate autonomy for the hills, wherein this sort of future conflict of this nature should not be allowed to happen again. Considering the vitality of Manipur, which is the corridor to South Asian countries for trade and commerce to happen, and for the betterment of the region at large, we need to ensure that peace has to prevail. And for peace to prevail, at least the agonizing party has to be given sufficient autonomy within the framework of India. So to my mind, when
Dr.
we talk
Hauke,
about
I'm sorry, I'm just interjecting you for a second.
Please,
you want peace to prevail, but there's thousands of guns which are there on the ground. How do you see peace prevailing in this kind of atmosphere?
See, then we have already discussed again and again. So discussing about violence, in my earlier talk, I said the first thing is that we should end this violence, and to end this violence, there were people in possession of guns should be seized. So there is no other way in which we can look forward for peace. Now the only viable option is that we have to have adequate autonomy for the aggrieved party, for the simple reason that this kind of conflict can happen again in future. So in order to do this, we need to understand some sort of now one is at the level of violence. Violence has to be immediately stopped. And for violence to stop, we need to take possession of these weapons which are on the ground. So this is the real challenge for the army of India. And most importantly, now the issue of what you call autonomy has to be looked into from the ethno-social linguistic point of view. So now there has been always attack from the majoritarian community accusing the hill people, the Cookies, of immigrants and immigrants. So to this point, please allow me to complete. Because if you keep on interrupting me, I lose some of my vital points. So if you look at any person who has an elementary knowledge of what you call anthropology or what you call linguistic situation of Northeast India will know that Northeast India shares many borders. So most of the tribes in Nagaland up to Tripura. So let's start from Arunachal Pradesh. All the tribes of Arunachal Pradesh, they have their own people living on their side of Myanmar. Then we have the entire stretch of Nagaland, and then we have Manipur, and it goes until Mizoram. So this is a cross-border tribes. And if you allow me to use the word like, because of partition error, these people should have been ideally brought together under one geographical roof. Because of certain partition error, that is the only word which I can put it at a moment of time. There have been for decades, there has been exchanges of cultures between these. In Nagaland, if you talk to any academician, they will tell you how there are cultural exchanges across Nagaland, festival across Nagaland, across Myanmar and Nagaland, and then this Arunachal Pradesh. Similarly, even in Manipur, also we have this. And Meiteis are also have some population in the other side of the borders. So you look at Mizoram. So now, to my mind, this tech of immigration is, without basic elementary knowledge of sociology or anthropology, is used to target the so-called Cookies, which is very unfortunate. So this has to be properly understood. That doesn't mean that we should welcome them. Now that petition is already fully complete, there must be state mechanism to address. After the
Dr. Hauke,
there must be.
Dr. Hauke, Karthike here. I had taken a small break. My colleague Brijesh was holding this debate. I just want to take this a little forward because a little time from now, the press conference will happen. I think it's time we talk in context. We talk in context of the problems at hand. I think we should talk in context of what should happen. It's like saying that let us continue to debate an issue on violence for 6 months. It's the worst thing you can do. These debates should not happen. These are the last things you should do. It's like having a debate on the misery of people who get bombed in Kyiv by Putin. It's like this. That should end. So my point is, I'm going back to Yashovardhan Azadji. Yashovardhan Azadji, can you draw some parallels from Punjab, sir? Can you draw some parallels from Mizoram, sir? Can you draw some parallels from internal security areas, sir, where you had served, in which civil society and state can collaborate to resolve issues of violence?
Well, I think, Punjab was very, very difficult and a different situation from Manipur, because we had a neighbor who was, virtually sponsoring all the acts. And there was a full-scale, civil society breakup from within because of the terrorists who are coming from the other side. So I would not compare Manipur with other situations. Manipur is a very, very a different kind of a situation, but we've had knowledge about Manipur in the 90s when we had these two communities clashing against each other. We had the violence of 2000 in which 100 people were killed. But this is something which has been precipitated, but was simmering for a long time. Mind you, there's one point, Karthike, which we don't discuss, and that is the abject third-rate governance. In fact, if you look at the governance rankings of Manipur, it's virtually in the last 3/4 quarter. So, there is a lot to say on that. There was a lot of time to build on that. And not having done that, if there is, suppose, yes, there was a high court order which said that the government should respond, but to build it up and to hype it up and then the armory is getting looted. I mean, how does one even even think of a situation like this which has come up, and how can you build up on the strength where your most important internal strength is ripped apart? I mean, if the state police is not functioning, you think the over layers of the army and CRPF will do better? They can shoot, they can bring about a kind of a fragile peace, but ultimately it has to come from within. And that's why, Kartikeya, all the time I have been insisting on this point, that you have to get you have to take penal action and start at the police station level. The police station people know almost everyone. If a church is attacked, it cannot be attacked by a stray man just going and lighting it up. It has to be planned. There is a lack of intelligence. That has to come from the local police station. There are a band of officers who are here and they have to be grouped together. So once you start getting the weapons back, and I'm telling you, that is the signal of confidence which people will get. Once you get that, then you can re-energize the self-help group. Third, then you can get the civil society to speak up. Then you can get the various platforms energized, whether it's the Mighty, whether it's the Cookie, whether it's the cross, energization and meeting of people. That is what is required. But first, you have to start from within. Outside layers can only give you outside support. But there is a lot to be done from outside also. There is intelligence has to be really beefed up, I think. And these attacks on villages, which are being done through the most sophisticated weapons like LMGs, and they have to be controlled. The highways have to be controlled. And ultimately, that is the only way I think you can bring about peace. You have to be a little rough, yes.
And in this context, Yashwardhan, I have a second question. We had seen Salva Judum in Chhattisgarh, something which is closer to you. You have now complete movement of communities in different areas. It's not like Salva Judum where camps were created, but Salva Judum by Supreme Court was abandoned. These camps ultimately will have to be destroyed because you cannot create ghettoization of communities. Can you just take us through how does state deals with such situations? Can you bring your rich experience and tell us about it? Because ghettoization of geography has happened in Manipur.
You are absolutely right. In fact, as far as Salva Judum is considered, I was personally there. I had gone to these various camps, and rightly so, it was disbanded. And let me tell you that the kind of action which was also done at the civic level by the authorities and also outsiders, it created a kind of confidence in the people. And after that, we were getting a lot of information about the Naxal hideouts, Naxal operations, and a tremendously effective action was done. And today, if you really look at the Naxal movement, it has really restricted to a very, very few pockets. And the violence is also all-time low. Of course, the sporadic incidences take place. In Manipur, yes. Manipur, I would say that there is a kind of ghettoization. There are these various groups that have become these vigilante groups who almost want to ape and the militants. In fact, I would say there is a kind of an adventurism and the kind of heroism attached to these kind of actions when you from village attack the other villages of the different community. And this is what has to be broken. And that is why I said, Kartikeya, that sometimes a tough action is really called for. You should not hold your range of fire when a particular village is being attacked, no matter who it is from the other sides. And, there's another thing. Much of these vigilante groups which have been created, they have been created because the kind of political backhand, and Dada Bhaumik would back me on this. There are a lot of vested interests also in local areas to continue this violence because they want to prove their loyalty to their own chieftains, whoever it were. So these are things which ought to break. And that is why I did not want to say it very, very clearly. But intelligence wings can do really a lot of things with the help of local people. And let me tell you, the strongest intelligence wing is the state intelligence wing, because they almost know everyone and they know how to bring about people against and for a particular cause. And that is what is required just now.
Okay, and before that, let me play out 4 important bites just to give sense of the situation to all my respected guests, that how politically fraught the positions are. To all the latest viewers who have joined us in hundreds, please listen to these bites to understand how polarized the position of political parties are inside the meeting. This will give you a sense of what is happening inside the meeting.
जो हालात देश में बिगड़ते जा रहे हैं, आप बताइए कि मणिपुर के अंदर 100 लोग मारे गए, 100 लोग किसे कहते हैं, क्योंकि नॉर्थ ईस्ट में छोटा प्रदेश है, 30 लाख की आबादी है, 100 लोग मारे गए वहां पर। और ये लोग कैंपेन करते गए कर्नाटक के अंदर चुनाव के अंदर। आप बताइए कि किसी राज्य में आग लग जाए, सब काम छोड़ के पहुंचना पड़ता वहां पे, तो पब्लिक को लगता भी कि हाँ प्रधानमंत्री आए हैं, गृह मंत्री आए हैं, हमारी चिंता कर रहे हैं, कौन को हल करेंगे जो समस्या हमारी है। कॉन्फिडेंस बढ़ता है तो स्वतः ही फिर डिफीट होता मामला। दुर्भाग्य से किसी ने परवाह करी नहीं, चुनाव जीतने के लिए बजरंग बली की जय हो क्या के वोट मांगते रहे, और बजरंग बली जी ने भी इनको सबक सिखा दिया कि तुम कब तक मेरे नाम का दुरुपयोग करोगे। तो ये हालात जब रहे हैं तो आग लगती गई, फिर अमित शाह जी गए हैं, अब जाके आ गए हैं। अभी तक भी मत तनाव बहुत भयंकर तनाव है, आज भी तनाव है। जो रिपोर्ट आ रही है आज भी वो अच्छी नहीं आ रही है। तो देश का कोई भाग हो, चाहे छोटा प्रदेश हो या बड़ा प्रदेश हो, जब तक आप गंभीरता से नहीं लेंगे समस्या को, मैसेज नहीं होगा प्रदेशवासियों को कि सरकार गंभीर है, तब तक ऐसी स्थिति मैं समझता हूँ बिगड़ सकती है, नहीं बिगड़नी चाहिए।
52 दिन से ये हिंसा चल रही है, अब तक प्रधानमंत्री ने अपनी चुप्पी नहीं तोड़ी है। नेशनल सिक्योरिटी एडवाइज़र भी अमेरिका में है प्रधानमंत्री जी के साथ। गृह मंत्री 1 महीने ये राइट्स चलते रहे, उसके बाद वो वहाँ पर पहुँचे, 4 दिन के लिए पहुँचे। जो उन्होंने पीस कमेटी बनाई उसमें जो भी जिनकी लड़ाई हो रही है वो लोग ही उसमें शामिल नहीं हैं। ये जो मीटिंग होनी चाहिए थी, ऑल पार्टी मीटिंग, बहुत पहले करनी चाहिए थी और ये प्रधानमंत्री जी को चेयर करनी चाहिए थी। पर क्योंकि प्रधानमंत्री अमेरिका में व्यस्त हैं, प्रधानमंत्री रैलीज़ में व्यस्त हैं, प्रधानमंत्री प्रचार में व्यस्त हैं, तो उन्होंने इस पर ध्यान नहीं दिया है। हम शिवसेना बिल्कुल इसमें शामिल होगी, क्योंकि हम जानना चाहते हैं कि मणिपुर की जनता जो इतने 52 दिन से बगैर इंटरनेट के, बगैर किसी सुरक्षा के रह रही है, 11,000 से 20,000 तक लोग वहाँ से बेघर हुए हैं, 100 से ज़्यादा जानें जा चुकी हैं। ये ऐसा क्यों है कि अब तक उस हिंसा को नियंत्रण में नहीं लाया जा रहा है? तो ये सारी जवाब गृह मंत्री को देने होंगे। और कोई सल्यूशन, क्या मणिपुर का सल्यूशन है, वो मैं उम्मीद करती हूँ वो हमारे सामने रखेंगे। और बस यही है कि मणिपुर में फिर से पीस होना चाहिए। जी।
Right, we are really saddened with the way Honorable Prime Minister treated the entire people of Manipur. It has gone 50 days. No, more than 50 days, still he is not saying anything, not even tweeting, not a single word expressed this peace message to the entire people of Manipur. So in fact, the way he treats to the entire people of Manipur, no, it is just like the second-class citizens. No, in fact, we are also the bona fide citizens of India. We are really shocking with this. And the activity that Honorable Prime Minister is doing now. Yeah, in fact, no, it is a matter of this for 1 week time. If these Honorable Prime Ministers, no, is intervene the matters. So this time, what happened is that the central government and the state government is going to different directions. So it's a very funny. Whatever it is, no, it should work together. The double engine should go together. So now what happened is that central government is going different direction and the state government is going another directions. That's why the solution is not it's not coming soon. So this why how I say is that you see the central government is something, their role is very confused. No. These Myanmar-based Kuki militants were originally from these Sindh state of Myanmar. These militants now they are infiltrating to the territory of Manipur. Now these refugees comes up more than 40,000. That is there in Manipur as well as to the Mizoram. Very recently in in April, so in the last April, Manipur government had find out some refugees, more than 2,000 in some of the area, in the limited area like Sandel, Tengnaufal and Juchanpur. So these refugees issues is there. This due to the unrest situation over in Myanmar, many these militants cross the border, and there is something confusion on that also. The central government is not working on that line also. It's not stopping. That's why these, in fact, in the hill area, these after infiltrating these, outside base militants, they are taking up many activities. In fact, they are taking this poppy plantation also. On that line, on that point, this honorable, this minister also have this interest clash between center and the state. So this is also one of the causes. And at the same time, this honorable chief minister has withdrawn from the tripartite talks without giving any information to the center and this Kuki, SHU teams. So this was also one of the very important for the causes of this thing.
Mr. Amit Shah, the Home Minister, already visited Manipur. He met all the political parties. The parties there in Manipur submitted a memorandum to Mr. Amit Shah, the Home Minister. He has come back. And what is the follow-up action the union government has initiated, nobody knows. In the meantime, a delegation consisting of 10 parties, which includes Congress Party, our party, the Communist Party of India, has come to Delhi. They were trying to meet Prime Minister, because Prime Minister so far not uttered a word on Manipur. Manipur is in turmoil, and the situation is so horrific. People are being killed. Devastation is taking place. There is no peace, normalcy. But Prime Minister has not said a word. And a delegation met Mr. Rajnath Singh, the Defence Minister. A delegation met Finance Minister, Madam Nirmala Sitharaman. What is the assessment of the union government with regard to Manipur? What is their thinking? What is that they would like to do in Manipur?
I think Dr. Umesh, you wanted to come in, if I'm not wrong.
Yeah, I just want to say something. Last point. Most of these panelists here, they have used the word communalism. Militarism. So
which word, sir? What did you say? Militarism.
No, majoritarianism.
Majoritarianism. Okay.
Yeah. So during the class between the Naga and the Kuki, and we Meitei, I'm proud of being a Meitei. We took the big role, and we have provided assistance to the Kuki community. We had given shelter, and this majoritarian concept is within the Kuki ethnic group itself. So there was a fight between the Kuki and the Myanmar in 1959-1960. You know what is the reason? The reason is the dominant Kuki group, they did not want Mar to be included in the scheduled tribe. Therefore, this clash was happened. And again, another one, there was a clash between Kuki and the Paite in 1970-1988. So the reason was that the dominant group, the majority Kuki group, they want to include Paite in the Kuki. They want to use the word Kuki term, but the Paite was against them. Paite did not want to use the term Kuki because it is a foreign slang word. So therefore, the concept of the Zomi comes into the Kuki ethnic group. And one more thing, I tried at my best level to refrain from the blame game. But one of my colleague, Hawkip, has mentioned that Mighty attacked the what you call Kuki community, tribal. Kuki community, and one more thing, they should not use the word tribal. Kuki cannot represent the whole tribal of Manipur. And one more thing, I don't want to say, but we can try to find out whether armed military group were involved, were participated in the so-called solidarity march on 3rd May. We started from the Bishnupur district to from the Chusampur district to Bishnupur district till Phaujakha Ikhai of the Bishnupur district.
I think,
So
good you mentioned about the arm thing. Dr. Ramesh, good you mentioned about the arm thing, because I actually wanted to ask that question to Yashovardhan Azadji, because he's very...
one more thing, please. Kartiki, give me one more second. So, I'm not saying, but you can find, even News9 can try to find out whether armed military group were participated in that rally or not. And one more thing, and those people who know much more about Manipur more than me, they must be knowing two places, Nakpat and Tangjeng. Nakpat and Tangjeng is two villages of the Metis community, and the Kuki militant, they have burned down the houses of the Nakpat and Tangjeng. Till now, this area are occupied by the Kuki militant, despite the deployment of the Assam rifle.
Okay. My whole idea is to take this.
I was.
Acha, ठीक है, please. Acha, please, complete it. चलिए, complete.
Let me complete. And till now, this area are occupied by Kuki military. Assam rifle is also here, despite the deployment of the Assam rifle. So you can try to find out whether what Ramesh is saying is right or wrong. We have enough time.
Okay.
So there is also an allegations of the involvement of the foreign element in this crisis, which is happening in Manipur. So you can find whether foreign weapons are involved in this, are using in this violence. Many people, many Metis die. You can find out the report of the post-mortem. You can find what sort of bullet was used by the Kuki militant in killing the Metis community. We can easily find out.
Okay.
What kind of
Can I now?
Were you? Yeah, okay.
Because time is also a factor. Mr. Azad, when he talked about armed militant groups, 30 days, how do you get to now, I'm really sorry to use the word, demilitarize the civil society? Because I don't think stuff is coming back.
Yeah, I mean, that is the biggest question I was referring to, that it is now a very highly militarized zone, and how do you get peace back unless you get the weapons back? And that's why I said the work would start with the police stations. There's another thing which I want to point out. There are a lot of reasons. Of course, there is the poppy cultivation, anti-encroachment drive. Of course, there's the hand of the militant or ex-militants who always take advantage of such situations in this. But we can't blame any kind of only the immigration, the infiltration, or it is the spot was simmering and it has come together because of a catalyst. Now the question is the most important: how do we get the entire thing back on ground? And that's why I'm saying that it has to start from within the system. And within the system, unfortunately, I don't know why it is not being kind of invigorated or engineered from within. So if the police stations don't function, how will the arms come back? How will the cases be registered? Who will look into the bringing back of arms and writing down in the general diary and Roj Namcha? These are very basic operations to be done in a police station. We can't go ahead with the drop boxes. In fact, if I were to suggest, Kartike, this system should stop. Of MLAs and MPs collecting weapons. There are also these weapons because the ammunition is finished. That's why they are returning the weapons. It has to go from the police stations, and these police stations, when they go, they should be backed up with the CRPF. Now, the other point which is mentioned by a gentleman, yes, I've also heard of it, that, about the allegations of the AR being a little soft on Kiye. See, there is a commission now, There is a judicial commission now, and there are some very capable people. I think the entire history as to why it happened or geography of it will come out in that. My issue is very simple, Kartikeya. See, in any turmoil, in any state, wherever there are ethnic aspirations, regional aspirations, whatever language aspirations, the question is, definitely there should be talks, there should be peace accords, attempted peace accords, and try to accommodate as much as possible about the hill. Yes, so much of autonomy can be given, funds can be directly transferred for the Methi, okay, development, jobs, etc., etc. But beyond a certain point, you cannot, look away from the integrity and unity of the state. Therefore, the state has to also draw some lines. And that is why peace today, adopting the toughest measures, are required just now to show that, yes, we will talk to you, but within a certain framework. Otherwise, the talks like the Nagas talks will keep on hanging about a greater Nagaland and the sovereignty issue, which is again being in conflict all the time.
Okay.
So therefore, the position has to be made clear.
The position has to be made clear. Yashovardhanji, thank you so much, because every time you come, you have a new perspective, you enlighten us. Dr. Pauting Haukev, Dr. Umesh, and Subir Bhaumikji, the whole idea is to at least have a conversation on Northeast and not to make it episodic. I know sometimes people say, ye kal discuss kar liya tha, parso discuss kar liya tha, but that's not the idea. The idea is to discuss an issue on a daily basis, so you know that how difficult it becomes even for the state to resolve it. So even if you feel tired, understand that even the various arms of the state are tired answering and dealing the same thing, because different parts of the community are not able to cede space, which Rami very eloquently pointed out. Brijesh?
No, I completely agree, and I think, until unless we start listening to all sides, they'll be next to impossible to arrive at a consensus, because once you hear all sides, then only you can start preparing grounds from, from where do you start looking at people ceding away the space. Until that happens, it's going to be a tough task. It'll be very interesting to see what comes out of that all-party meet and, the subsequent series of press conferences which have been planned.
I think one good thing is, on this note, I'll end. The all-party meet was supposed to end pretty early. The briefing of the Congress party was supposed to take place at a particular point of time, which it has not. It means that the all-party meeting has gone beyond its time, which means questions must have happened, answers must have been given, deliberation must have happened. I think that's a very good sign, and I hope that this good sign also reflects in number of press conferences which will be held. So this is all in our special edition of Manipur Crisis. Be with us. We are on this story. We'll show you all aspects every day through the week. Thank you.
China won't let us rest easy on our borders, but they will keep flooding our markets. What does Xi Jinping really want?
I think he wants the Indian market, no doubt about it. It's really a matter of showing their dominance.
India's great Chinese conundrum.
Nobody can contain it. Not the United States, not China, not anybody else.
Frenemies. This and more. Streaming on the world's first news OTT, News9 Plus. Download now. BrahMos. Stealthy, lethal, precise. It flies at 3 times the speed of sound and cuts through a warship like a hot knife through butter. China's navy has threatened its neighbors, and they are turning to the BrahMos for protection. The warship killer. This and more streaming on world's first news OTT, News9 Plus. Download now.
हम अपनी फौज के साथ खड़े हैं, हमारी फौज ने हमें जंग जितवाई है।
Imran Khan was brought in by the army thinking that he would be better than the two established political parties.
मैं Imran Ahmed Khan Niazi.
They were quite confident that if